Yo, what's going on YouTube? Hey, and welcome back to the channel here at AZ Ruction for the YouTube streets of Tuesday night. Hey, you guys know who you're dealing with. You're dealing with your boy AZ Ruction. You're dealing with New Age Plug and my boy Ronnie Blue Eyes. And today we have a special guest. We're doing the part 3 of the interview with my mother on the YouTube street so that you guys can get the exclusive. So just know tonight we're going to be talking about the Arizona men and women prison system. Now, keep in mind, I apologize to everybody, but I will not be reading the chats tonight. And I apologize to anybody who is looking forward to the shout outs, but I'm sorry. Tonight, we're just going to be diving into it. I don't want to be distracted with comments. So if you're new to the channel, please do the original. Go ahead, like, subscribe, comment. Make sure you share those videos. And in case you don't know, we got my boy New Age Plug. You did it again. We
What's
got
up
my
with it?
boy Ronnie Blue Eyes, the Boston boss. And we have my mother, Mrs. AZ. Miss AZ, let's go. Um, just in case people haven't heard you in the past, please go ahead and introduce yourself, Ma, and let people know what you want to be called by, Miss AZ, and let them know why you're up on the channel.
Um, so I'm John's mom, and I wanted to share with you guys the other side of the prison, the other side of the fence, the officers that work there, what it's like to work there, what kind of things we see, what kind of things that happen, and why we do some of the things that we do.
Let's go. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's break it into this. How was your first day at DOC in Arizona? Because we talked about Texas the last time you were on. So this time we're talking about, just so people know, so that they know, we're talking about Arizona. And keep in mind that my mom actually worked in the females prison, and then she worked in the males prison. She kind of went back and forth a couple of times, but for the most part, what she's going to do is she's going to start with the first place that she did corrections in Arizona, whether it was for male or female. Go ahead. What was it, Ma? Did you work in the male or the female side when you first came to Arizona?
When I first came to Arizona and you go to the training, they call it CODA, Correctional Officer Training Academy. I don't remember how long it was, 6 or 8 weeks. And John and my kids were in Texas when I went through that training. And so the training is like, they make you go through like physical agility, and they have to make you run and carry a flag, and it's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Well, they try to make it paramilitary, but I don't know, they're ridiculous. They told me I had to like get my car registered in Arizona, and they were giving me a hard time about it, which was total BS because my husband at the time was in the military, and we don't have to change our license plate wherever we go. That's just the law. But whatever. I did it just to keep the peace.
Mm-hmm.
And they put you through like pepper training, pepper spray, where they spray you.
I was
So
gonna ask
you know
about
what it's
that.
like
Yeah.
to get pepper sprayed and
Oh,
stuff. Yeah, it was kind of rough. It wasn't that bad. They don't spray you directly. They kind of set it off, and they pay attention to where the wind is, so it goes into the cadets. So we were exposed, but wasn't
A direct shot.
as direct. Like when we give a direct shot of pepper spray, we aim for the eyes because the eye and nose and
You
the
cross
mouth.
that T, make that cross.
That's where it's going to affect you the most. You know, I mean, if you get it, say they spray you on your leg, it's going to leave a red mark.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Ma, let me tell you this. The first time that I got sprayed by, it wasn't just the mace. I got sprayed by the big bottle mace that has the bottle with the little handle on it. So
Yeah,
keep in mind that I got maced and tased at the same exact time. And when I was done and I could finally, okay, so about 6 or 7 hours later, I could finally see, because keep in mind I couldn't see nothing. And I looked at my face and I had a red stripe right across my face, and then it went in a Z pattern down the side of my nose to my mouth, and then it went back like a Z. And then the rest of my body had these weird little lines going all through them, and then I had these little like burn marks from them tasting me. That shit sucks. I don't care what nobody says. To get maced, that sucks.
Well,
But to get maced by a fogger,
we don't use mace. We use pepper spray, and the differences are the mace is a different type of chemical.
oh, okay.
We use this pepper spray, which literally is made from the capsium of the pepper. And there's a water base and an oil base. And from the time that we were there, we've switched over probably 3 times to different ones. Personally, I like the oil-based one. Just seems stronger and more effective, and it kind of sticks to the skin, you know.
Right.
So,
Now, when you say stronger and more protective, what is a situation okay, so the first time that you were a CO, right? Like the first situation that you had where you were like, holy shit, I'm a CO. Like, what was that situation like? The first time that you like really were like, oh my God, hey, I work in a prison. This dude just came at me, or this female, she just came at me. What was going through your first head, and where was it at? Was it in the women's or the men's?
well, it was in the women's when I was working in Texas. I think we talked about that on the last live, where there was a riot and all the inmates came up on us at one time. And then later a girl tried to attack me, but she hit the table and I just kind of moved out of the way. So that was like, but I don't know, it kind of hits you really when you walk in the gate and you hear that gate slam. Because those electronic gates, they have a distinct noise.
Yes, they do.
They are they're basically run by air and magnets. So different prisons might be different. But when you hear that clink, clink, when that gate shuts behind you, and then you're kind of in a spline walking up to the front, and there's fencing on both sides, the gate closes behind you, and there's another gate in front of you. That's when it's like kind of hits you like, oh my God, here we go.
I was very intimidating
Right.
as a child. Like even visiting my father when he was locked up as a kid, it was like so huge. The place was so big to me. It's so loud and like, scary and quiet at the same time.
Yeah. And when you're a child, everything's a little more exaggerated because it's
Right.
new to you. And you're just, that has to be difficult for kids to their first experience.
No,
Hey, definitely. That has to be a weird experience. Hey, Ronnie, what was it like for you to visit your father or family members as a child? What was it like for you, bro?
It was very common. So it was like a regular thing. I thought it was normal, but it was intimidating at first. Like going up to Walpole State Prison, it was different than the jail. You know, sometimes I get to like see my father, and then it was behind the glass, depending what jail or what prison he was in. But when I was younger, it was real intimidating. At first, it really was.
Right,
I
right.
got used to it after a while, but even my brothers too, same thing. When I was younger, I'd go visit my brother, and it would be real intimidating, real intimidating.
Right,
And
right.
that's what I think they wanted it to be. So I didn't go down that same,
Definitely.
you know.
Yeah, definitely, Ronnie. Hey, for sure. Hey, Plug, what about you, brother?
This is hey, listen, Miss Mama AZ, you look really good tonight. You said you got your hair done. You look really good. Just want to put that out there.
Thanks for coming on.
Everyone compliment his mom right now. Looking good. Now,
Hey, salute.
so this is a couple things that comes to mind, like being just a woman in general in the United States. Like it's hard, just doing. I wouldn't necessarily say a CEO is a man's job, but particularly when people think of CEOs, I think they think of a man doing the job, right? I don't know if maybe I'm being sexist right now, but I think this is how my
No,
mind, you know what I
I
mean?
certainly did. I certainly did. I did. When I was in California, I was seeing some of the prisons out there, and I was kind of like thinking about it back then. I was wondering, but I didn't think that my current husband and family would be accepting of that. But I was thinking maybe that I could get a job out there at the men's colony. Um, but it just never really happened and didn't happen until later. So,
And the reason I brought that up is because there is another YouTuber out there, and one of his DRs was some inappropriate stuff he did in front of a woman CEO. He did, I don't know what they would call that over there in Arizona, but basically he ejaculated in front of a woman CEO. Now saying that, did you have any weird experiences like that?
yes, I've had many. And when they do stuff like that, if you write them up, they can literally turn you into a sex offender. So you can't really, I mean, inmates do that, but if I write a ticket, and I always would write an IR because sometimes they'll throw out your tickets. Maybe the supervisor doesn't like you, or maybe the warden doesn't want any attention drawn to her unit or his unit. And so for certain things, sometimes they go through and sometimes they don't. But if you do an information report, that stays in that inmate's folder. And parole can read that. Disciplinary can read that. Anyone could read that information report, which would let you. So even if they don't get disciplined, at least that will follow them. It goes on their jacket or their folder. So
Now,
that's
yeah, and I was just wondering because like the spitting on, like I see that a lot. I see it. I think that's the most thing that I hate. Like I hate when someone spits on me, they're gonna get knocked out. So as a CO, did you experience a lot of inmates spitting on you?
no, I never had them spit on me, and they also can throw like feces and urine and stuff.
Oh,
But they make that up, especially like the mentally ill guys, the guys that are on watches and stuff. Sometimes I think that they fake that they have an issue because they want to be housed by themselves or whatever. But they put up plastic partitions on the cell door so they couldn't do that.
Well, here's the thing, Ma. So, okay, with you coming from Arizona, you know what makes you know as well as I do what makes certain individuals a piece of shit, correct?
Mhm.
Like, okay, oh, now there is another YouTuber called Pino. Um, he has a DR. Is it a plug? Is it sexual assault? Either way, I don't know. Okay, Here's what he did, Ma. While he was in a class in prison, he got a ticket for jacking off to the CO.
Was it
Does
his
that
school
does
or
that
was it
make
teacher?
does that make you a piece of shit in the general population of Arizona?
Yeah, that's a sex charge. You're
Exactly.
basically a sex offender if you do something like that. You know, and I know there were inmates that would do that. My screen turned off. Did I go out or did you still see me?
No, you're good. We can see you, Ma. You're good.
It's back up, but I think the screen died. I don't know why it's like plugged
No, look, hey,
in. Okay,
Ma,
anyway, so
we can see you. You're good. You look
So-
beautiful, by the way.
thank you.
You know.
So inmates, I'm sure, kind of when you're doing walks and whatever, I'm sure they jack off at times and I don't see it. And then there's other times that they make it known that
Yeah.
that's what they're doing. They let you know because if you ignore them, that's not what their intention is. They want some kind of attention or reaction for entertainment. There were a couple of nasty things that happened. One thing that was kind of gross, but it was really funny. Just because all the other inmates were laughing, they usually wait till count because the count time is very consistent. It's the same time several times a day. So they usually pick count time to do some shenanigans like that. And there was this, I think this was at Maury. I don't know the inmate's name. I don't remember. But he was like a smaller black guy. He wasn't real tall or anything. He was at least my height or maybe even a little bit shorter. And
How tall are you?
I'm 5'5".
Okay, there you go.
So he was about 5'5" or 5'4", maybe even. And the inmates were kind of laughing as I was going by and talking in the vents. So I knew something was up, but I just didn't know what. And I always look in the window. I look for the inmate with a flashlight, or if it's daytime, you always look to see the inmate and check the ID. And I was a real stickler about stuff like that because if you count somebody who's not there, you can lose your job. So
this is real quick, Ma. This is the stuff that people don't understand that COs go through, right?
Facts.
So people think that COs are just, they're just these cops. They're just these people that do our counts. But people don't understand that these same people, they have lives as well. They have families that they have to take care of. And when certain things are done, well, that individual can possibly lose their job. Because when it comes down to it, they protect the inmates more than they protect the COs. I'm just going to say that outright. And I know that for a fact. It's not just from my mother. This is from, I have friends that I went to high school with. My mom will tell you, hey, Ma, you remember my boy who he was a sheriff, right? Remember from high school?
Oh, yeah.
He came and installed your speakers in your house. Remember that?
Yeah, he started out in county, didn't he?
Right. He started out in county, and then he became an actual sheriff. Shout out to your wife, brother. But yeah, I'm just saying.
What's going on?
My mom knows what's up.
Yeah,
But
you're good.
hey, we won't even get into that. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He started out. I went to high school with him. The guy that I'm talking about who became a real sheriff. He started out as a sheriff deputy for the county jail. But then later on in life, he became a real sheriff. When I was in high school, and my mom and I were going through some issues, and I was not trying to cooperate with her guidelines. So she told me, hey, look, hey, if you don't want to follow my rules, then you can just leave. And I did, because I'm a knucklehead. I had it good at my mom's house. I'm not going to lie. I had it good. All I had to do was either go to school or work. And I went to work, but I didn't want to give my mom no money for rent. I didn't want to give her no money for, being 19 years old, staying with your mother. If you don't want to give her rent and you don't want to give her no money for food and you don't want to do nothing to help the household, then you're absolutely useless. Did I see that when I was 18 and 19 years old? No. But now I'm almost 40 years old and I get it. It's like, okay, you want to be a pain in my ass, but you don't want to fucking pay no bills. You don't want to do no shit, and then go ahead and be feet creep. You can go ahead and go somewhere else. I get it now. When I was younger, I didn't understand it. Now
Right.
that I'm older, my son is 16. My daughter's about to be 10. Which my daughter and my mother are very, very, very close. Um,
And let me say this. Speaking of you,
yeah.
right? Speaking of you, and let's get into the organizations that she saw her as her time as a CEO. So, what was the
Well,
structure? What was the
let
structure like?
okay. Did you want? Okay.
That's like a double question, but in general, let's say
What do
when
you
you
mean?
like in general, so did you have certain individuals that were like shot callers that even had an energy about them, like you're there and everyone was talking about them, or was there certain gangs that ruled? What ran the prisons at the time you were there? Like, what was the organization everyone was worried about? Who was calling the shots? Who was the big dog there? And
in
what was
Arizona.
and then this is the double question: what was the craziest thing you've
Well, a
seen from
lot of
that?
that kind of stuff really was SSU were the ones that dealt with the gangs and stuff.
What's SSU?
SSU is, I'm trying to remember what they stand for, but what they do is um, they monitor security threat groups, which are the Mexican mafia, and the different gangs that
Aryan Brotherhood.
right, in the Aryan Brotherhoods and different ones or whatever. Now, I really didn't pay a lot of attention to that because I generally didn't care who was, running the run. But sometimes they would come up to me and tell me, sometimes they would tell me, look, what that guy did wasn't right, and we're not going to let him get away with that, or whatever. Or sometimes I would make a blanket announcement in the run that I didn't like the way things were going and the way people were behaving, and I didn't say whoever's in charge because I didn't like to acknowledge that, but I would say y'all need to get this guy under control. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to be
So,
down here 30 minutes and
Yeah.
you're going to be miserable. You know what I mean?
so could you say this? Um, when Okay, so answer me on this. If you could, uh, okay, I guess what I'm trying to say it in a way that doesn't put you or me in a jam. Because, you and I have talked. You know who I'm associated with. You know the type of people that I fuck with. So with that being said, all of that, did you respect? Okay, because you had to have known who the shot callers were. Um, Maybe not from personal experience, maybe even from reports, because I don't care what anybody says. When they would come through and they would do our cell checks, being in a supermax facility, they would just let us know, like, hey, check it out. We're going to be searching your cell. And at first, I would freak out. I would tell the cops, I'd be like, what the fuck you want to search our cell for? What's up, dude? You know, I would get all buck wild, ready to catch 6, 7 years for some bullshit. But when it comes down to it, I'd be like, well, what the fuck you want to come in here for? So
Well,
with that being said, did you guys ever look at any inmates and be like, hey, I know who you are. I know you're a big dog, so I'm not going to really fuck with you. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of just do my thing. You're not causing me problems, but I know who you are. Did you ever have those type of incidences?
I really kind of didn't try to acknowledge the inmates and who was in power or control, because honestly, they were not in control over me. They were more managing the inmates. And I never really acknowledged to them or the other inmates, but the inmates would come up to me sometimes and tell me, and there were telltale signs. They always had a ton of store. They always had like anything they needed. And they were
Right.
always like giving shit to other inmates to give to somebody else and running things back and forth. So there were some telltale signs, but honestly, to me, I didn't pay attention to that, and I didn't acknowledge those inmates other than a couple of times, maybe when they would approach me over inappropriate behavior from an inmate, and he would say, I took care of that for you.
Now, when you say, not to cut you off, Ma, but when you say inappropriate behavior, are you talking on a general population yard or a PC yard?
Well, the PCs were inappropriate at times. Like one time, an inmate was being escorted by another female and to the back gate to go to medical or something. And he was a sex offender, and he just reached over and grabbed her crotch.
What?
Yeah, he didn't do it to me,
He did a Trump.
but he reached over and just like
Stop
really.
it, plug.
She knows it's funny.
Now that's
Shout,
hilarious.
Trump 2024. We're all Trump
Yes.
supporters here, but
Ma,
listen, we
hey,
got to go by the facts. He said it.
hey,
Not a,
Ma, as you know, we're all Trump supporters, but you have to know that, like, I've told all these guys how you are about Trump. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
told them how you've kicked family members out of the house because they disrespected Trump. So you have to understand that literally there's a video of Trump where he walks up and grabs women's coochies. And when they asked him about it, his answer was like, them bitches like that shit.
Well,
He
maybe
just walks up and grabs the coochie. He don't give a fuck. He just walks up and grabs the coochie, and females don't say nothing because he's a billionaire. So they look at it like, well, okay. Did I get pregnant by you today or not?
But in this
well,
instant,
he
it
could
was
do
it
it.
was
He knows who he could do it to, because if he did it to the wrong girl, he might be missing some teeth.
right. Now the sex offender that did this to the CO, what happened to him?
Well, they had she called an IC. It was sexual. It was considered a sexual assault. He roughed her up a little bit, like he grabbed her in that area, and he was rough with her. He wasn't like just trying because there are inmates that will try to get by, like get through the door when you're walking through the door, and they're brushing up against you. They're actually getting off on that. And so you have to really be careful that you're not walking through the door when you've got chow going on and inmates are all leaving. You have to be very conscious of your surroundings and not put yourself in that situation. Now, I'm not saying she put herself in any kind of situation. She didn't. I don't know why he wasn't cuffed up. He should have been handcuffed because it was after hours. but maybe for some reason she trusted this guy, which I didn't trust any inmate, because at the end of the day, I don't really know them, and they tend to be very manipulating and want to get what they want out of different things. They all
Yeah.
have motive. So like why she didn't have him, because it was at night on night shift. So why she didn't have him in handcuffs when she was walking him, or maybe she did, and maybe he turned and grabbed her because maybe he was handcuffed in front. I never handcuffed inmates in front, but he could have had belly chains on. I think
Yeah.
he came from lockdown, so
Hey,
it could
well,
have belly
well,
chains. His hands were in front, but he was grabbed her. It was really rough. Of course, we called
what?
an ICS. People responded, took him to the ground, and then took him to medical to get checked because they
Well,
roughed
hey,
him up.
let me ask you this, Ma. So, like, what level security were they at? Because you know as well, you know that I was in a supermax facility all my time because all my shit was violent. I went to prison for a violent charge, and then when I went to prison, I was putting in work, doing my thing, and I got a whole bunch of violent charges while I was in prison, which led me to a supermax facility. And at that point, I would, to this day, if you look me up, my DOC numbers, just so, hey, Doubleina, just so you know, my DOC number is 307387. You can look, he can look me up. I was rated, now this is a DOC thing. So I was rated violence a 10 out of a 10, and I was actually rated a danger to society a 10 out of a 10. Now, what people they can take what they want with that and they can run with it, but what it really comes down to is like, hey, I'm a very nice person. I love people. I love animals. I'm a very kind-hearted person, but when I go to prison or I go to jail, it's almost like my heart turns to cold because I know that if I'm a nice person in prison or in jail,
You get taken advantage of.
I might get taken advantage of. Exactly, Ronnie. I might get taken advantage of. Now, with that being said, Ma, what is a time what is a time? What is the worst thing that has ever stuck with you as a CO? And I'm talking, it doesn't matter if you've seen somebody getting raped. It doesn't matter if you've seen somebody getting stabbed in the face, because I'm not going to lie to you. I told Plug about how you told me when I was, much younger, how they had an individual who they cut his eyeball.
Well, there's been a couple things. The first thing I think would be the hostage situation that happened at Lewis.
Hmm.
I
Well,
was
talk about that. What year was that at?
I'm not good with dates and years. I don't even know.
I am. It was about
I'm really
2008, 2009.
Yeah, I'm really bad about that. But well, you can Google that. I mean
Right.
that was,
Hey, that was a huge. Just so people know that when ASPC Lewis got taken over, that was a big deal. That was on the front of the news channels.
yeah, it was
Just
the
so
longest
y'all know.
hostage situation in history ever.
Wow.
They let that shit go on for like almost a month. It was ridiculous. And it was because the governor didn't want to shoot the inmate. But they had people on the rooftops ready to go. And these two inmates worked in the kitchen. And I think his name was Coy and Ock or something like that. And they took over the kitchen and took these big paddles that they stir those big kettles with. These paddles are like rowing paddles, only they're metal.
They're metal. They're straight
They
steel.
weren't tied
So
down.
people don't know, if you took a
They took that
floating device and you took your rubber raft and you had the little they're what are they called? They're not paddles, but they're called
oars.
urns or whatever. If you took that and you made it completely steel, that's what she's talking about. Go ahead, Mom.
All metal, and they took that and hit the officer in the face. They broke his bones right here on his eyes, and then
Orbital.
the orbital bone.
Right.
And when they did that, then they took his uniform off and put it on, and then they overtook the other officer in the kitchen as well.
Oars. I'm sorry, Ma. Oars. That's what it looked like. A metal oar.
Yeah.
There you
And
go. Sorry.
I don't understand why they designed Lewis Prison the way they did. Whoever designed it are freaking idiots, because they put the tower between the 2 yards that split in the middle of the yard. I have
Right.
never seen a prison with a tower in the yard. The tower's supposed to be, its purpose is to stop escapes. So the tower's supposed to be on the fence line. It's not supposed
Yeah.
to be in the yard. It's supposed to be just outside the fence to watch the fence line. And when they put it in the middle, it makes absolutely no sense, because we had our AR-15s, and you have to consider that if you're going to shoot someone climbing over the fence, which would be justifiable, but the distance from the tower to the fence was too far, and that bullet will start dropping. So you're not going to get an accurate shot. So, and
Now,
why would you have a
Ma,
tower with weapons in the center of the yard? It's just stupid. I just never
well,
understood.
to keep in mind, Ma, explain to people what you guys go through when you have to get you guys do have to take a marksmanship type of test, etc. Explain to everybody else what it is that you had to go to qualify to be, when you go to the shooting range. Explain to people what your guys is.
When you go to CODA and training, you learn how, if you don't know how to use a firearm, you learn how to use it. You learn how to use a Glock, a 9mm Glock, an AR-15, and a shotgun. So, but I grew up with guns. My papa used to take us shooting all the time. I got pictures of me holding a rifle that's taller than I am. But anyway, I always did really good because I was already comfortable with guns. And some people aren't, and they struggle with it. But really, that was my first time being in a controlled environment with weapons, and you have to follow the directions that they give you, or they, yell at you and give you a hard time. So you have to listen, and they'll tell you 3 rounds. So when they say 3 rounds, strong-handed or weak-handed, then it's 3 rounds, not 5. And a lot of people would panic and shoot too many or whatever. But anyway, I always did really good on that. So they train us on all 3 of those weapons. And generally, there's no guns on the yard other than at Lewis, because they're on the tower, but they're not on our person on the ground. And so the tower you had to put on a Glock on your waist, and you had the option to use a shotgun, and it had bird shot, and it also had the lead in it, depending on, they've switched over the years what we use. And then when I left, last time I left, they had fin stabilizers, which are non-lethal. So in the AR-15. And then we had the shotgun, and it would be birdshot, which you shoot at lower extremities. And, you know, then there was also a 33 millimeter that we had. And the 33 millimeter it basically is a pretty big barrel. It's like really, I don't know, probably about that big around. It's pretty big, 33 millimeters around. And you put the knee knockers in there. You would put the stinger balls in there. You could put
What
gas
are
in
what
there.
what are
Well,
knee knockers?
knee knockers are a cartridge that has large wood chips packed into it. And you're supposed to shoot it at lower extremities. It's basically supposed to shoot it to bounce off the ground so it hits them in, you know, around the legs or knees. So, and then there's a stinger balls, and you shoot those the same way. You shoot them in front of them so they bounce up and hit them in the legs and knock them down. And then there's CS gas that has a cartridge. You could use that too. And there's also it's a distractionary like noise thing you can put in there. So, but you can use any of those things depending on what's going on, you know. When I was on the tower, I never got to shoot off a round in the tower. So I kind of wanted to, but I never got.
Well, hey, well, when you say a tower, explain to the people what you mean by a tower.
The tower's kind of like those big, tall, they almost look like a lighthouse, but they're not as tall, I guess. And they have a platform on top, and they have windows in the middle. And then ours had a lower area too, and it was fenced in. And that's kind of where things went weird, was that these inmates in the kitchen that took over the kitchen and put on a uniform, when they showed the officer their ID, they had the other officer's ID.
Wait, hold on, Ma. Not to interrupt you, but you said that inmates, they had an officer's ID, right?
Well, they took over their uniform, and probably in their uniform was their
Mm,
ID, because you can't leave without it, and you
right.
can't get in without it.
Now, this is the same. This is the same time when I had to come watch my little brother because you had to stay. You had to stay a few days at the prison, correct?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So just so people know that there was a point in time in I want to say it's Arizona history, but it was in Maury. It was in Louisville, like Lewis Prison, where they actually. I'm gonna just say that they were no good because they were not. I know for a fact that the dudes that took over that prison system at that time, they were no good. They were not general population. I know for a fact that they were actually piece of shits.
Well,
So
I think one of them was a sex offender.
okay, that's what I'm saying. They were piece of shits.
They both, well, of course, afterward, they were also sex offenders. They raped the female that was in there. And they
Okay,
raped the
and
male that was in there too, because there was two officers, and they raped both of them. And they,
so the male and the female, they raped both of the male and the female, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
Hmm.
the whole thing was, it was crazy because our director in the time was a female director.
Mm-hmm.
She was very soft on the inmates, and she didn't want them to shoot the inmate. And these guys are walking around with guns. And keep in mind, once they got in the tower, and they got in the tower because they had their uniform, the officer's uniform on, and they showed their ID from the ground, which you can't really see. And one of them actually looked a lot like the officer that he took his uniform of.
And keep in mind that
It's just to open the gate if they show their ID, even if you can't see the name or see the face clear. It was common practice, which wasn't a good practice, to just open the gate, because the way they had it set up was there was a control office. The control panel was upstairs. So you would have to run all the way downstairs, have him put his ID in the trap, look at his ID, and then go all the way back upstairs and open the door. If he had a uniform on and he had an ID, we just let people in. That's just what he did.
Well, that's normal. Okay, so let's just keep it real, right? If I was a correctional officer and I saw somebody trying to come into my pod or unit or whatever the fuck it is you guys call it, if I saw somebody with a badge and a uniform, I'm going to be honest, I probably wouldn't question it. I just wouldn't. I'd probably be like, oh, hey, salute, brother. Hey, good to see you, sister. Whatever the fuck it is.
It was commonplace to let people in the tower if they wanted in. I mean, we used to let people in the tower all the time. They would come up there and eat lunch. They would leave their lunch in the fridge up there. They would come in there to use the bathroom. And you have to go through one gate and then the door. But then they changed everything after that situation happened. And I get, it shouldn't have happened, but it did. And part of it was, a lot of it, I think, was the department's fault. Because one, they should never have the tower and weapons in the middle of the yard. That is just ludicrous. Any other prisons you see, this is the only prison I've ever seen a tower in the middle of the yard. It's just stupid. And they did it to control the inmates. Like if there was a fight or a riot or whatever, I guess they think they could, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me at all why the tower was there in the first place. It should have been outside of the fence where other towers are. So it was a design flaw. And then it became like where people would hang out sometimes. Or one time I had an officer come in. There were two officers that wanted to come in, and she was working. This girl was working at the top of the tower, and she called me on the radio and asked me to relieve her. I relieved her, and she went downstairs and met up with her boyfriend or lover at the time.
Yep. I see.
And had sex in the tower and had me relieve her to do it. I didn't know what she was doing. I thought she just had to go to the bathroom or needed a break. So I went up on the top of the tower, and then another officer came in who was it was his last day, and he got a job with the police. He was going to work for the police department in Phoenix. And he walked in, needed to legitimately use the bathroom. And when he went to open the door, it was locked. And then when he knocked on the door, all he could hear is a bunch of scuffling and a bunch of noise, and because they're trying to get themselves together.
Yeah.
He was pissed off because it was his last day. He didn't.
Yeah, who uses the bathroom anymore, bro? We're in here.
Right.
Crazy.
He totally caught him. And then I was pissed off because she kind of made me an accomplice.
Accessory unknowingly to some sexery. Respectfully.
Ronnie. Oh, yeah, bro.
I was always suspicious of women that would come to work and be okay with having sex at the prison, because I don't care if it was a CO or not, because it starts out as COs and then they end up with the inmates in the end, because obviously they have no boundaries.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, how common? Okay, so You and I have talked about this in the past, but just so the people know, how common was it for inmates to mess with COs and white shirts?
It happens. You know, you have to be a strong-minded person. You have to have good personal boundaries. You have to be
Definitely.
able to value yourself enough that you're not going to do that. And I always kind of viewed it as, I mean, I dated people at work, but I never like dated people on my yard. I never dated my supervisor, which went on a lot, and it used to get on my nerves. Because then once you're dating the supervisor, then you expect special privileges. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You
overtime to say the
expect
least.
everybody to do your job for you. And I would tell those hoe bags to get to walking. You're not
Hell
working in
yeah.
my building because I ain't
Mrs.
doing
AZ for sure, right off the branch. Okay.
Hey,
this.
this is where I get all my honesty from. If you guys ever wonder, yes, sometimes I happen to be a little drunk. But at the same time, what you guys don't understand is that this is where I get my honesty from. It's my mom. My mother is a beautiful person, and I pick up a lot of traits from my mom. And that happens to be, if I see some fake ass shit, I'm going to call you out on it. If I see you're doing some weirdo shit, I'm going to call you out on it. If you're doing some sneaky ass snake shit, I'm going to call you out on it. And
Big
guess what?
facts.
If my mom knows you in person and you do some weird shit, she's going to call you out on it.
Yeah, that's how
If
my
you do
mom is.
some
She's
goofy
brutally
shit,
honest with my
right?
friends.
Hey,
If they look horrible, she's like, "You look like shit, kid. What are you doing?"
yeah, hey,
Uh,
well, hey, look, that's how my mom is, right? My mom, I'm gonna put this out
tough
there.
love.
This isn't something that I'm proud of. I had a couple of friends over. I was about 15. My mom, I was not feeling my mother's rules, and she had told my friends they needed to leave, and I was like, "Damn, ma, like you acting kind of like a bitch." And she slapped me in front of my friends,
Allegedly.
and I
Unbelievable.
never,
I'm
I
kidding.
never said
In the
that to
next week,
her again. Hey, like she slapped the dog shit out of me in front of like 3 or 4 of my
Oh,
friends.
quit your belly aching, boy.
Yeah,
like who
didn't
you
do that
talking
again.
to?
Well,
Didn't do that again.
well,
I
Well,
promise you that.
there's this one Hispanic girl, and she started, and she immediately just started dating COs right off. And she was like petite and cute and whatever, and she was very manipulative. And she would sit in the control room and make these guys do her walks, do her journal, do her security checks. They did everything for her because they think that she's going to put out for them or something. I don't know why they would do all her work for
oh,
her.
if they liked her, the inmates must have loved her. But continue.
But well, she came to my building one day. Well, she did all kinds of stupid stuff. One
I'm
thing she
sure.
did was she claimed she had cancer and she didn't.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so she has no boundaries,
That's next level.
no moral compass at all. Well, she came to my building one time and she just put her feet up on the desk and
Oh,
was
hell
sitting
no.
there. She was the floor. And I'm doing the journal. I was assigned in the control room. And so I'm opening up the journal and stuff. And you want to do your walks usually within the first half hour. I always did my walk as soon as I walked in the door. Because if an inmate wasn't beat up in between shifts or between walks, or an inmate is dead or something, and you didn't check on them sooner and they were gone for like some shifts will miss it. Some
Yeah.
inmates will stay, the inmates will cover them up in a blanket so you don't know that they're hurt or that they're dead, and they'll die in their
Yeah. And
no,
this is the second time you brought this up, that you're very, you know,
they don't pull the blanket off and say, hey, are you
yeah.
there? Hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
And And
you always make sure you stress that before that you were very
Kind of by the book.
Now,
well,
what about the whole myth of these booty bandits? Now, on the East Coast, you hear the booty bandit thing.
Well,
Have you
hold on. Let me
ever-
finish what I was. We're getting into like a story, and then I don't get to finish telling the
Oh,
story.
my bad.
So this
ADHD
chick comes
podcast.
in and she puts her feet up. She doesn't do her walk, and then inmates are at the doors because that was the laundry day, so they were supposed. We have to go open each door, and somebody has to be at the door to get the laundry out and all this other stuff. Well, she didn't want to do it. She wasn't having it because she hasn't done her job ever.
She got
Because
minions for that.
she's manipulated. She's manipulative. So she didn't want to do her job. And I says, look, I said, they're ringing the bells. You know what they want. It's laundry. You need to go get it. She goes, well, I'm not doing that. And I says, you know what? You're right. You need to get the fuck out of here because you're not going to sit in my building and I'm not going to sit here and do your job. And I'm not going to sit here and have something happen because you don't want to get off your fat ass and go do a walk.
Not up in my house.
that's my mama.
She goes,
Oh, yeah.
you can't tell me that. You can't tell. I said, I just did. And I says, and by the way, I'll call the supervisor right now. And I called him up and I said, look, I'm not working with this chick. She doesn't want to do her job. She's had everyone do her job for her for the last 6 months. I'm not working with her. Can you send me an officer that's actually a real officer that's going to do their job? And they said, oh, okay, Hall, we'll take it, or okay, we'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. And they did that, and they sent somebody else, and she was all ticked off. But those supervisors, I had more time in than most of the supervisors. And it wasn't very often that I would call them and say something like that, a complaint. And so when I did, they
knew it was for a reason.
They knew it was for a reason. And they
Right.
knew how she was. They knew she never did anything.
And obviously you're responsible, so they knew that it must again be for a reason.
Right. So
Hey, so Plug, what was your question?
Plug.
He might be with the kiddos.
Well,
hey,
first
with
of all,
this,
let me
go ahead,
just
Ronnie.
let me just thank you again for coming on. I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you. And it's very rare that people see both sides. You experience it from both ends, you know, working and then experiencing having your son being locked up. So could you say you could sympathize with people sometimes because of that? Or
Ooh, that's a good question, Ronnie.
yeah, well, not only was my son in prison for a while, but I had a brother that spent his entire adult life in prison till he was 50.
right.
I also had a sister that did 7 years in the prison.
Wow.
So,
And keep in mind, people, that my aunt who did 7 years, to this day, she's not allowed to have duct tape. There's several items that if she has in her car, at one point in time, if they pull her over, she's probably burnt. Keep in mind that my uncle, when he did most of that time in prison, my uncle actually killed an individual who was his cellmate who happened to be a sex offender. He only got 7 years for it because he was able to prove that DOC literally set him up because they knew that he was associated with the Aryan Brotherhood, and they knew that if they put that individual into his cell that he would take care of him, and he did. And he was actually a pretty horrible person, right, Ma?
But from what he told me and from what I've read and understood, because, you know, I always kept tabs on family members, you know, that were in prison. Yeah. But it was a fight for his life. That guy was trying to kill him, and he was able to prove that. And he got manslaughter, so he didn't get murder. And so that's the thing is, once you walk through those gates, you can get street crimes for crimes committed in the prison.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to not get caught up in that kind of stuff, you know.
Facts. What did
Definitely.
you tell me after I got out of prison? I was very okay, so what people don't understand is that I was very boisterous about my prison experience, because some people don't understand is that it was hard for me to break away from talking about prison, because that's where I lived. 3 years of your life,
Right.
it's not a long time.
Especially when you're young, it's significant.
It was enough to change who my personality
Definitely.
was. My mother and I had a discussion last night about my dark sense of humor. She didn't agree with it. But I explained to her, like, you don't understand, like, hey, some things in prison numbed me.
Yeah.
So
It's
some things,
desensitizing you to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So some things that might disgust somebody else out makes me laugh.
Yeah.
If I see a snitch getting his head smashed in, or a pedophile getting his head smashed in, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, you poor baby. I'm going to sit there and I'm be like, yeah, fuck his head up. Hey, fuck him up. So that's kind of the difference that her and I have. She is a lot more sympathetic,
Yeah.
if you will, to certain individuals. Does my mom agree with pedophiles? Absolutely not. She's not with that shit. But at the same time, I'm coming from a place where it's like, kill that motherfucker, slice his head open, his neck open, and let's just call it a day. But because she is a person of the law, in her opinion, we've talked about this, her opinion, she's like, well, if they do their time and they do it correctly, then they should have a fair chance. But me
Well,
personally, her and I,
feel that way. I feel like, and I've observed pedophiles in the medical units when I worked there. These guys never change.
exactly.
It is
Thank you.
wired in their brains that is different than everybody else. And I don't think
Thank you.
These guys we had several inmates in the medical area, and some rooms had 3 or 4 inmates in there. They were larger rooms.
Yeah.
And they were old guys in wheelchairs, walkers, hobbling around. And there
Not
was
learning no new tricks.
was dominating ones, and they were molesting each other
Oh God.
in the medical rooms.
Don't take your trazodone.
You know, they were just, and I was I
That's
can't
funny.
believe these guys are like on their deathbed. They're on oxygen. They're on walkers.
Old dogs.
They lay in bed all day. They can't do anything, but they do have the energy to go and molest another old man. Like, it's so, what the heck?
Yeah.
Just,
Now, you've seen the men's and the women's, correct?
the medical unit I worked in was the men's unit. The
But
women's unit,
overall, in general, you worked at a men's prison and women's.
yes, I worked at the women's prison at Lane Murray unit in Texas. And then I
Wow.
worked at Perryville here for a year. And then I put in a transfer to go to Lewis prison because they were offering like a $5,000 bonus. They were offering the days off I wanted because I had
Well,
experience. So
Between
Mom,
the
hey.
go ahead.
Hey, my bad, Ronnie, but hey, mom, what you have to explain to people because they're not from Arizona, so they don't understand that Perryville is actually a women's prison.
Yeah, Perryville's
Okay.
prison.
Perryville, that's a women's prison. In the 90s, I'm going to give a short story here. So in the 90s, Perryville was actually a men's prison.
Wow.
With that being said, this is the craziest shit ever. So check this out. I ended up beating up a Mexican dude who was faking the funk to be with the raza. Now, here's how small of a world this is. I beat this old man up. He was like 53 years old. I don't give a fuck what nobody says. Yes, this is the guy that I told you guys about where I literally ran up and I kneed this motherfucker in the chin. I jumped up 3 feet in the air and kneed him in the chin. Boom! Knocked this dude completely out. Now, this is how small of a world it is. The same guy that I beat up was actually, he had a hit. He had a hit on him from the Aryan Brotherhood from 15 years to 20 years prior to that. Because check this out. I ended up beating up a guy who went to Perryville prison when it was a men's prison, and a CO got stabbed he got stabbed like 3 or 4 times and was dying. Well, the reason why this guy was no good for the Mexicans is because he ran up and he gave him CPR and he saved his life. So since the mid 90s, he's literally had a hit on him from the white boys for like 15, 20 years. I go to county jail. He disrespects me. I have no idea who he is. He disrespects me, and him and I just start fucking going at it. I beat the dog shit out of this old man. Come to find out that I had, in some kind of a way, not on purpose, but carried out a hit on the guy. Did I kill him? No, of course not. I just beat the dog shit out this old man. But it's just a small world. It turned out that in the early 90s, he created how do I say it? He created an issue or a problem with the white boys in the early 90s as a Mexican dude. And it's crazy that 30 years later, I end up beating this dude up because he disrespected me. And it comes to find out that he was the same dude who has saved a correctional officer and had a hit on him from the white boys.
Stick around as the world goes round. Yep.
Yes, sir. I beat the dog shit out that old man.
Perryville was a men's prison until 2000. And I was supposed to go to northern Arizona to work at the prison up there. But they told me that they were turning the Perryville into a women's prison, and they needed women there with experience with women. And I worked with the women in Texas. And so I checked it out, the area in Goodyear. It was pretty rural back then. And couldn't even get pizza delivered where we lived. But
that's crazy.
I like it like that though.
Yeah.
And then I went to work over there. And so I was there for the transition from the men to the women.
Right. So basically where I was going with that, so you've seen both. What, in your opinion, was like worse and why? Like, what was the biggest difference?
Well, there's a lot of differences. The women are very dramatic.
Right.
They're very emotional.
Loud.
They're very family orientated. They're very immature. You know, they kind of act like teenagers and stuff. Yep. They act like they're in middle school or something. It's just very immature the way a lot of them act. And they form families, like moms, wives, aunties, whatever, grandparents and whatever, because their family's not there. So they form their own little cliques and families.
because like 90% of the guys in my family been to jail, but only like one of my sisters is in prison right now, you know. But like out of my brothers, 9 out of 10 of us have either been arrested or been in jail or prison. But with the girls, it's not so much. It's a little different. But my sister's in now, and it's crazy. She's like, it's just drama 24/7.
Yeah, it's like a total. There's drama all the time, and a lot of them just make trouble to make trouble. They are very sexual. They like have oral sex all the time. They make little. They make like kind
Let's
of
get
like
into it.
they kind of like knitting up little teddy bears and things like that
Right.
that they use to get off with.
Right.
It looks innocent enough, you know.
Right.
One time there was a lieutenant doing a search, and he was new to working with women. And he went in there and we're searching stuff, and he found this little teddy bear looking thing, and he picks it up with no gloves.
Oh.
He's saying, "Oh, look at this! And look what they made this! It's so cute." And I
Oh
said,
man.
"You know what you're holding right now? Like that's what he gets off on, and you don't even have gloves on, and you know they have."
Hey,
No,
this,
was that the
else.
most odd thing you've seen it made out of? Or was there other things that kind of just blew your mind? Like they get very creative, to say the least, right?
well,
Well, one time
hey,
this-
Ma, let me say this real quick, Ronnie. Just to give you guys an idea, I dated a female who did prison time in Perryville, and she told me that they used to take Jolly Ranchers and they would make whole dildos out of them, and they would go to town on each other with that shit.
I mean, the aftertaste, bro, it's kind of respectfully inappropriate. This feels like an inappropriate conversation to have with your mom. I'm sorry,
Well, hey, this is
but
my
we're
mom.
here. We're here
You guys,
now.
I don't think you guys
I can't
understand
say
though.
nothing but sorry. We're here now.
My
We are
mom and
very
I have a
open.
different relationship. We're close with each
No,
other,
that's
bro.
super cool. That's super cool. But
We talk about all kinds of things that make people blush.
so you'd say the men would be probably more serious and the women more dramatic.
Yeah, and women are coming from an emotional place, and when they fight, they won't stop fighting until they're completely burned out. And they're fighting from an emotional standpoint, so they never stand down. They never put their hands behind their back and just, you know, when
So
we
was it more strenuous, more stressful at the women's prison, you'd say, or
just in different ways.
right?
You know what I mean? I mean, the men are very manipulative too, but the women are just a lot of drama, and they also have a lot of other health problems. And when you're a female in a female prison, you do strip searches constantly. You have to do UAs, and then I never seen a man that's getting a UA, and I know they don't do the same things women do. Women have to squat with a cup to pee.
Right.
And they will like, "Oh, I can't do it. I can't. I'm gonna fall. I'm getting dizzy." And like they play these games. You can't piss in the cup.
Yeah.
Like, look, I don't care if you piss in the cup or on the floor, whatever. If you don't get urine in that cup, they're gonna say it's positive, because usually if they refuse, there's a reason they're refusing.
You're
Because
right.
they're doing drugs.
Of course.
I used to hate doing UAs because they were always so dramatic about it, and they would always pretend they're gonna fall, and I can't do it, and I can't squat, and oh my God, it's going down my leg, or they know how to do it. They do it all the time, so they're just playing
What?
games.
Well, what was okay? So before we get in more to the men's, because you've been talking about the men's most of the time. So, what was the craziest thing that stands out in your head the most about what you've seen in a women's prison in that time? After that, we'll move on back to the men's prison.
I'll tell you this one story. This story is crazy. There's this lady, and she was I don't remember if she was on the highest custody yard. So she was either doing life or on death row. And she was this big, big, fat white lady. She must have weighed 500 pounds. And she had diabetes and kind of like a bunch of different health problems. And we had to walk her from that yard all the way across like a field for her to get her insulin and her medical, whatever. Well, the nurses used to come to her cell, but they said, look, this lady, if we don't get her moving and walking, all she does is lay in that cell and eat and do nothing. So they wanted to get her to walk across the field to medical, which was a little bit of a ways, but it wasn't that far. So she cooperated. She went down there, and then on her way back, after she got her treatment and her insulin and stuff, on her way back, she sat in the middle of the field and took off all her clothes. And just around and telling everybody, if this is what you're going to do, this is what I'm going to do. Because I'm not walking down here to medical. You all trying to make me walk, and I'm not doing it. And if you try to make me do it, this is what you're going to get. You're going to get a show.
I got time today.
All her clothes off. Everything.
Holy.
And nobody wanted to go. She smelled really bad because she didn't take showers.
There goes everybody's visual. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
Right?
Yeah.
You knew nobody wanted to see all that. And nobody wanted to go handcuff her either.
Nobody wanted to go smell all that
either.
either.
Her over into the dirt and handcuff her and get her ass up and touch her and wrestle with her. Nobody was down to do that. She must have sat out there for like an hour because
Ma, I'm not gonna lie to you. I saw a Facebook reel the other day where this older lady, her granddaughter gets in the car, and her granddaughter immediately turns up the heat on the heat seater. And this 80-year-old lady looks at her and goes, "What the hell are you doing?" She goes, "I'm cold and I wanted to heat up the seat warmers." She goes, "Are you fucking kidding me? I don't want to smell fucking fried fish. You better turn that shit the fuck off."
Oh no.
I was dead as fuck. I was like, hell no. This old lady.
This lady was terrible. She didn't, I'm sure she was probably depressed or whatever, but she didn't take showers. You could smell her cell. These cells the doors faced the outside. So the run that we walked on was outside, and the entrance to their cell was outside. And you could smell her cell before you come to it. That's how bad she stunk. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So you can imagine when you open it, it really hits you. And then she comes out and she just leaves this stinky stench all the way out, And she said they weren't going to make her do anything. And they didn't after that. After that, they didn't make her walk to medical anymore.
No, she had time today.
So she won. She beat DOC is what happened.
She beat the system.
She might have won the battle, but I'm pretty sure she lost the war. I'm pretty sure she lost the war. Pretty sure.
She might enjoy the walk, but I guess because she was so heavy and she lived on the second tier, so she didn't like walking down the stairs and she didn't like walking out there. I don't know. She just wants to be left alone and sit and eat her Doritos in her bunk and do nothing.
That'll do it.
And
she's sweating out all that nacho cheese.
Right? She would always refuse showers. Ugh.
Gross. Yeah. Okay, so with that being in the women's system, let me ask you this. What is so I did tell Plug about how when I was younger, you had told me, I want to say it was around 2002, 2003. There was a story that I had heard come from you where the AB allegedly, we'll say allegedly, had because what people don't understand is that you worked on Maury and Steiner quite a bit. So for the people that don't know, in prison, well, not now, not now.
I worked
Now it's different.
every unit except for Bart, except
Well,
for
well, we
Bucky.
called Steiner Stickum Steiner, and we called Maury Murder Maury. Now, I'll be honest with everybody. Before I went to prison, I had heard the nickname Murder Maury and Stickum Steiner from my mom because my mom worked. She worked in Louisville prison quite a bit. Those were the two main killer yards forever. Now they're PC yards, but they're no good yards. But when I was in high school in 2000 to 2004 to even 2010, it was called Stickum Steiner and Murder Maury. Now, one of the stories that I had told Plug in the past that a lot of people would like to hear, I'm sure. I know you didn't have a lot of direct. You didn't have a lot of direct. How do I say it? Interference, I guess, with this crime, allegedly. But I do remember you talking about something that had happened in the prison in Murder Maury, where the AB had cut the eyeballs out of another individual and flushed them down the toilet because
It wasn't his eyeballs.
what
It
was it?
It was his balls, and he cut his own balls off.
Damn.
So
With
how did I mix that up? That's crazy.
Yeah.
with nail clippers.
Oh,
What?
He used nail clippers to cut off his balls.
Oh my God. That's worse than what I thought
He
the
was,
situation was.
he was
Wow.
mentally ill.
wow. So the mentally ill thing is a big thing because a lot of these people, was there proper training? And you said you were exposed to pepper spray. Did they do the same thing with tasers? Like,
No,
or just pepper spray?
recently they added tasers that officers can actually carry tasers now. Before we
Yeah.
couldn't carry them. A supervisor had to carry it, and he had to have permission from the warden to even use it. So by the time you get around to all of that drama, forget it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
You're
because
already
sometimes
done.
you see like
usually
on
the drama's
TV,
over.
they have
It's
to
gonna
get
take
shot with it
hours and hours. You
in
know what I
order
mean?
to use it. You know, they have to experience it.
Yeah. And the pepper spray we did carry on us. In Texas, we didn't carry anything but handcuffs and a radio. In Arizona, we were able to carry pepper spray, which was cool.
You seem like you handled it pretty well. You handle yourself pretty well. What was the most challenging aspect of being a correctional officer?
Damn, that's a good question, Ronnie. That's my guy right there.
Thank you.
You know I love you, Ronnie.
Salute.
It's
Love
a
too,
real
though.
That's a fire
balance
question.
because you have to get along with officers, which I didn't always get along with the officers. And you have
Especially
to
that
kind
one
of try,
female.
yeah, you have to kind of try and also get along with the inmates to some degree.
Yeah, you have to have at least build a rapport, right?
Right. But you got good and bad employees like Walmart or anywhere else.
Right.
So you've got some piece of shit officers.
Just like cops, you got some cops that are by the book, and then you got some that are not.
Right.
I'll just say
And
that.
I know when I was stupid stuff like an officer's were two of us are rolling up an inmate, which means we're inventorying all of their store, all of their personal property. And what do you do when the officer takes a bag of chips and starts to open it up and maybe a soda and starts taking this inmate's personal property and decides he's going to eat this guy's
man.
food?
That
Do I
really
tell him
puts you in
off?
right.
Is that guy going to have my back later? Does he think I'm going to snitch him out? Because it's kind of the same way with officers ratting.
Yeah, it's putting you definitely in between a rock and a
You know what
hard
I mean?
place.
But the right thing to do is to tell him, look, if you do that, you're no better than any of these inmates in here. Like, you're turning into one of them. What is
Straight
wrong
up.
with you? These guys don't have that much anyway. And you're taking what little bit they have for yourself. And I'm not about that. So you're not going to do that on my watch because I'm not okay with it.
Yeah, you
know?
definitely have to be mentally strong to uphold that job. I think a lot of people get into it, but it's kind of like the military. They weed out the weak, and not everybody's cut out for it, you know?
Yeah.
But
That's Ronnie. My mom did 20, 40 years, 23
having
years in this
family,
shit.
you know, having family
26.
inside. What
26.
made you choose that career path, if you will?
Well, there was not a lot of work in the area when I started in Texas, and
I hear that.
I was talked into doing it by a neighbor who did that. She was ex-military.
Fucking neighbors.
Just keep in mind that the story that I told, so the so the friend that she had start her on this path was the same individual that had he had a kid who was about a year younger than me, and he was a little shithead. He was a little asshole. I hated that little fucker. And the story I told you guys where me and two of my friends peed in squirt guns, and we squirted that little fucker in the face with piss. He was sitting there lobbing it up going, oh, I love water. And we were laughing the whole time, like,
Man,
yeah,
I
I'll
used to
bet you
use
do
water
love
I never
water,
balloons.
even
you
heard
little
that
fuck.
story before. I never
Yes.
even heard that
I
story.
used to
That
pee in the
you
water
remember her little
balloons.
kid, right? Mott,
She
you
had
remember her
one-
little kid, right? You remember that little blonde little motherfucker who's a little shithead, right? You remember him?
She
Oh,
had one
He
boy
had the
and one
silver
girl.
teeth. He had the silver teeth in his mouth. You know that if you're 8 and 9 years old and you have silver teeth in your mouth, you're a little piece of shit. You're a little fucker. You're a bad little kid. I already know. If I see you
Nah.
with silver teeth in your mouth at 9 years old, I already know you're a
Okay.
bad little kid.
All right. Well, you weren't too good either if you were using urine.
No, absolutely
It
not.
gotta
But
be a
fuck that little
stressful
fucker.
job though. And to come home, how do you just like leave that at the door? You know, like
Well, yeah, well, you really do have to try to leave it at home or leave it at work because
or have
your
coping
family's always
mechanisms.
accusing you of treating them like inmates.
Right.
And I don't think I was. I think they were that's just a dig that they could make. You know what I mean?
Well, Ma, hey, you know I love you, and I'll be honest with you. There were times where you can ask both of my brothers, they'll tell you, both your sons, they'll tell you that and don't get me wrong, look, I'm gonna be honest, Ma, we don't hold you responsible for this because look, that's the environment you lived in. But yes, there were times where you brought that type of stuff home. I can remember right now there were times where you would tell me to go to my room. Well, you would tell me to go to my room, but you would say, lock down to your room. You know what I'm saying?
I
So
Man,
was
they used to
usually
call my
joking.
mom the warden, man. I got 9 brothers and sisters. They used to call my mom warden, bro. Straight up.
Well, I think maybe like I don't remember saying that. I mean, we joke about that with the animals. We joke around like that.
Right.
Like even today, my husband and I will joke around about the animals. Like if they get
Speaking of
into
that, my pit bull's snoring so loud next to me, so that ain't me. He's a bull.
get into something, we'll tell him, oh, he needs to go log down in the kennel or he needs to, whatever.
Hose it off.
But maybe I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I really don't think I knew the difference between my family, my friends, whatever. But because it was such an unexpected career for me, my family didn't like it. My mom didn't like it. My brothers and sisters didn't like it. And they used to criticize me about it and for it. And but yet I was paying my bills. I wasn't asking them for money. They were asking me for money. So
So look, even though you experienced having family on the inside, right? I know you said your brother, and I think it was your father, but you know, we all know
my aunt.
we all know it's a lot different when it's your son, right? And you being on the other side, knowing exactly what goes down and how it goes down. When AZ came across that path, was that very like scary for you to go through, knowing he was in that kind of place and environment that you know all too well?
More difficult for me because I
Knew it too well.
knew it too well. I know how easy it is to get in trouble. I've seen inmates that had their head stomped on until and they end up in medical, and they're but 7 years old in their own minds. You know what I mean? I've seen inmates killed. I've seen inmates beat up.
So you're definitely a strong woman. That's very admirable because, you know,
but I told him, don't go to prison. Of course, John never does anything he's told. I told him, don't get into trouble. If you end up in prison and you get yourself in trouble, and I told him this from the time that he was like 7, 8, 10. I will not be in the visitor's line. I will not put money on your books. I will not be writing you letters. I am not going to support you in any way. You know what I do. And if you end up in prison, it's a slap in the face.
Yeah, definitely. And I understand that, Mom.
I do. There was a time he was upset and mad because when he first got out, that I didn't write him, that I didn't call him, I didn't put money on his books, I didn't visit him.
It wasn't. I'll be honest.
You were angry, but you got over it. But I was like, you know,
but you have to understand, Maud, that it wasn't that nobody put money on my books, so I didn't expect that. Where I was hurt from is that, like, okay, like, hey, I fucked up, right? I went to prison. I fucked up. I don't care if anybody put money on my books because I'm an amazing artist. I made my money off of artwork. I probably would have made more. I probably made more money off of artwork than you guys would have ever sent me in prison. Where I was sad and where I was upset is that I was going through something that was the hardest time in my life. And when I say the hardest time in my life, I mean the hardest time in my life because I was going through something that, yes, I created, of course. I can understand that. I created that. But at the same time, you have to understand that when you have other people around you that they didn't get shit from their family, but during Christmas, they at least got a Christmas card. That was, I'm not gonna lie to you, Ma, that was the biggest thing that I ever wanted from anybody. It wasn't money. I just wanted a Christmas card or a birthday card from somebody saying, "Hey, we love you, we miss you." And
you anything like that?
What's that?
Didn't Amber send you cards?
No, I got 3 letters from my daughter's mom the entire 3 years I was in prison. Other than that, I never got a letter from anybody. I did all my time completely by myself. I didn't have family to help me. I didn't have family to write me. My own little brother did not come and visit me in prison because he had prior hit on my baby mom and was afraid that I was going to beat him up in prison. He literally told me that he was afraid I was going to beat him up in prison. I was like, what are you talking about? You're my little bro. Like, you would have been behind a glass wall. I could have never touched you even if I wanted to. But my whole point is,
your mom was showing that tough love, but I get it.
She was showing the tough love. I'm not upset with it. I'm not. I used to be.
In a situation where I'm getting patted down and searched, and I have to wait in line and bring a roll of quarters and go to visitation and see you in a jumpsuit, it's too much. It's too much for me to deal with. And not only did I understand seeing you in a jumpsuit and knowing that you're in prison But then I have to face my fellow employees. My
Yeah.
coworkers are the ones checking me through, filling out the paper, and doing the whole rigmarole.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're looking at you like, what the fuck, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot
I
of people
get it.
who don't understand.
I understand.
I
I just
didn't
wanted
want,
you.
I didn't want everybody to know that I
Of
was
course not.
and you were in prison because I could get
That's
you.
embarrassing. It's embarrassing for you to raise me a certain way, and then your son is literally on the other side of the fence, because I wasn't just on the other side of the fence. I was on the GP side.
Yeah. I
Like
got a
I was
nephew like
put.
that. My brother-in-law is an
Yeah.
enforcement, but his son's locked up, and it's tough because he spent his whole life in military and working, but now his son's an inmate, and it's
Well,
tough.
hey, Ronnie, I can tell you this right now. One of the biggest things that I respect about my mom and what she told me when I got out of prison, she literally told me, she said, listen, she goes, son, I love you. And I just want you to know that I love you. She goes, I understand what it is to go through prison in a way. She was like, I know you had to deal with things and put up with
Yeah,
things that couldn't imagine. She's like, but I just want you to know that I do love you.
yeah,
And to me, that meant a lot more to me than you probably realize, Ma. But like for you to tell me the stuff that you said sometimes, it meant a lot to me, and it made up for a lot of the stuff that I felt like I was neglected from. Neglected in the way of I didn't get birthday cards, Christmas cards.
You definitely
That's
felt
all I mean. I don't mean neglected in family issues, because, like I tell everybody, I grew up in a good family.
yep.
I did not have a mother that was an alcoholic or a drug addict or any of that. I had a good mom. Um, I didn't grow up in a
Yeah,
shitty
you make
ass.
that clear.
you just caught
Yeah,
up like a lot of kids at that age were caught
right.
up back then about wanting to be a rapper, wanting to be a badass and stuff. And I'm like, there's another side to that that's pretty
Yeah,
ugly. And I
yeah,
don't think
Hey,
that's what you really want. But
I don't know.
John's
I
so
don't
hard,
know.
he don't listen to anybody. If I tell
no.
him,
Every day's the opposite day. He didn't tell you though.
like I told you when you were convicted, I think I was talking to Amber and you were on the line with her or something. And I said,
Yeah,
don't, oh no, I don't know. I don't remember. Remember, I told you not to get pregnant? Don't get pregnant before you go to jail. And he sure did.
yeah, I did. I had my daughter. I
Yeah, she's great. I love her. She's here on the weekends and I love spending time.
always. That's
But,
my baby. I love you, Brookie Boo.
I just didn't want Amber to have to go through her pregnancy while he was in
Right.
jail and stuff. And
Well, like I said, and you've seen it. You've seen, and for a long time, you've seen it. So you know what goes on. And the last thing, it's one thing to see a brother or a father, but our children are the most cherished thing to us. So that had to be scary.
it
It
was
had to be
heartbreaking.
scary.
It was heartbreaking. Most of the time I just tried not to think about it because if I go down that rabbit hole, then it's just all bad.
Mm.
And
You
there's
know what
many
the best part of that is, though, Ma?
what?
Is that I was a motherfucking gangster and I kept it real. You didn't have to worry about me getting killed, because I put in my work. I did what I had to do. I'm cool with everybody. Like, I still talk to four brothers on a personal level. Right now, to this day, they call me on the weekly and see how I'm doing. They check and see how Brooklyn's doing. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I understand where you were scared from, but
I don't agree with the whole fact that you even went to jail, that you were doing things that would get you there.
of
Like
course,
I
Right.
of
never
course.
was okay with any of that stuff, and it used to really upset me. you know.
Yeah, of course. And
Because he
because I
wasn't
didn't come from a family of criminals. I didn't.
Yeah,
right
that's understandable.
Before Brooklyn, you had a son at that time,
Yeah,
and he needed you.
yeah.
You couldn't
And I
be there.
wasn't there.
Yeah, and
I
that's
wasn't.
the true tragedy in this is
Yeah.
children that were
And
left.
that's what it always comes down to, you know. Unfortunately, it's like the sins of our father, the sins of our, you know, it catches up, it trickles. It's like the butterfly effect. It affects us one way or the other. For me, it was like
Yeah.
I ignored it for a long time, and then it hit me later on in life when I had my own family, and I was like, wow, maybe I did miss out on having a dad. Like it would have been cool to, you know.
Mhm.
But it had to be crazy that much years, 26 years, like the kind of stuff you would find, say a contraband search. What was the most common thing you'd find? Or what was the craziest thing you've ever found or heard
Tattoo
of?
guns, tattoo ink,
Yeah.
um,
I make fire tattooing. Just so
altered
you-
altered stuff.
Yeah.
Finding stuff hidden in TVs, drugs.
Did you ever witness like prison rape?
No, but
Because
I did have inmates come up to me and tell me.
well, the thing that I explain to people the most is that okay, so what you have to understand, Ma, is that on the East Coast, they have what are called booty bandits. That's the term. They are what they sound like. They are men who take the booties of other men. They rape other men. And so, what I try and explain to people is that the Mexicans, the whites, the Native Americans, nobody, they don't accept rape. So when people are like, "How come you don't tell a booty bandit story?" It's like,
Yeah.
well,
That's how the
because
kind of the old timers out here, but it got to be like mob related. They
yeah,
don't put up with that
Well,
shit.
there's like a couple of
Zero
times when I
tolerance.
was like, in
it's
the,
not very common, right, Ma? In Arizona,
it doesn't
it's
happen
not
all the
common.
time. But you
Yeah.
kind of like one time I was in the control room and there's 2 runs and then 2 runs on these 2 sides. So 6 runs. And I'm facing this run, so A, B, C, and D. So in Charlie run, the guy in the first bed had an inmate that was giving him a massage and
Gay as fuck.
giving
I'm
him a
gonna assume a PC yard. I'm
he's
just gonna go with a PC yard.
he's laying on his bed and stuff. And when I went in, I was the control officer, but the other officer that was doing the walk didn't want to say anything. And I said, I'm gonna go say something. I'm sitting where I'm getting a show and I don't want to see all that shit. So I went in there,
That's
told
gross.
the young kid, of course, the guy that was getting the massage was older, and the guy that was doing the massage was younger and probably fairly new in prison. So I went in there and I says, look, knock this shit off. I don't want to see this fucking shit. You think I want to sit here all night and watch you guys getting all boopity boo? No, I don't. You need to go back to your house. And you need to knock this shit off and stop being so obvious and taking advantage of other people. And then
Straight up.
were you, and then I took the inmate aside because, you know, we're supposed to do that. Ask him, you know, is he bullying you? Is he raping you? Or like,
Did they touch
Priya,
you there?
Priya,
no, yeah,
Priya.
they call it Priya now.
I'm calling Priya. Priya. You put a Snickers bar on my bunk. Priya. Priya.
I told him that I wasn't down for watching this crap, and I didn't want to see it, and for them to knock it off.
I didn't rent no gay porn in this motherfucker. Shut that shit off. You know?
Sometimes inmates would like hang up like booty pictures or girls that are naked and whatever up in their cell areas to make it clear that they're not gay or something. I don't know, but they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed.
Right. Was that considered contraband?
Well, it's first of all, it's offensive material,
Right.
and men and women work there. and we shouldn't have to be looking at pornography whenever we walk down the road for a walk, you know.
Well, yeah, I understand.
I would tell them to take that stuff down. And sometimes I would rip it down.
Hey, Maude, I'm sure you do, but do you know why Arizona does not have smut anymore?
What is smut?
Porn.
A magazine?
Yeah. Do you know why we're not allowed to have that in Arizona anymore?
Why?
Because a pedophile decided that he would sue Arizona because he was not allowed to have child pornography. So he decided that it was a lawsuit, that it was unfair and it was unfit. So Arizona made it a law that there's no more pornography allowed in the prison system because the pedophile decided that he couldn't have child porn and sued the state of Arizona and won. He sued the state of Arizona and won.
One inmate was really, really big and fat, and he used to just lay in bed, and he was so gross. He would lay in bed in his boxers in all his glory. He never put his stupid clothes on. He would just lay there constantly and just eat in bed. And there would be like, when you'd search his house, it stunk. And there would be like a smashed ding dong or whatever, in the bed. Or he was sleeping with his food because he was eating all the time. He sued the state for making him fat.
Wow.
No
probably
way.
won too.
Stop.
Let me find out. Yeah. He probably won too.
Yeah, he tried to sue the state.
Did he win?
I don't know. I don't remember. I don't know if he won.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
It was so nasty. He ended up in medical. I remember his name, and I usually don't remember everybody's name, but I think he was just so nasty. The nurse he would call the nurse and call the nurse. He said he couldn't get up and walk, but he could. And they would have to digitally with their finger remove the poop out of his ass. And he would ask, and I had to stand there and protect her. So I had to stand there and watch.
Oh my God.
And then he was like, oh, I gotta go. You gotta get it out, whatever, because he would get constipated. So they would have to do that, and he would get off on that. And then he would turn and ask the nurse, so what's it look like? Is there popcorn in there?
What?
Or you would ask her what.
Oh my God.
He was so disgusting. Ugh, I hated that guy. And then there was not pornography. There was pictures. He was a child molester. And there were pictures that he would draw. And he drew some really good pictures, but they were very offensive and weird. Like he had one of a female's vagina that was like a snake with fangs.
What the fuck?
Yeah, he drew a female, and then her legs are open, and then there was a picture of a snake's mouth with its tongue coming out and fangs and stuff.
Sounds pretty badass, but that ain't. That is just no.
And then he would draw pictures of a little kid sitting.
That's fucking sick. They should have strung him up.
Yeah, with his feet curled up. And his head down, this little kid was very sad. And then there would be it would show his shadow kind of picture, and it would be lit up and he was in a closet. And then he would show the door would be open, and then a silhouette of a man standing over this child naked.
Oh my God.
You draw these weird pictures.
What a sick motherfucker.
I took the pictures because I was like, this shit is off the hook.
Not up in here, yeah.
And they would say, the nurses in the psych said, well, he's allowed to draw that stuff because it's therapy for him. I guess he was molested. They said it was therapy for him. He was expressing himself through his art because he was also molested. But he was also a child molester himself.
Crazy. And there's a lot of art in there. You see some of the most in some of
I
the
believe
worst
he's
places.
dead now. He finally freaking died. And I was like, when is this?
Right.
And you know what is sad? Which is crazy weird, is that these evil, evil people, these evil men, it's like the nastier and meaner they are, the longer they live. They never die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help that the state will have us go into a surgical room and watch a child molester get a triple bypass. And he's doing a life sentence.
Right.
That doesn't make
Well,
no damn sense to me. He should die of natural causes. Why
hey,
are we prolonging his life?
well, here's the thing that so you know, Ma, but for the rest of the people that don't know, my daughter's mom died of cancer. They did not make enough money
Your
to where
daughter,
they could get,
your
well,
daughter,
they couldn't get medical done for them. But there are inmates in the Arizona prison system that are serial killers, murderers, rapists, serial rapists. But if they get cancer, they get the full treatment that costs $200,000-300,000.
Right.
Well,
But
the
some
reason
people
that's
on the
because
streets, civilians, can't even get it.
they have
Right.
to have 2 officers escort them to the appointments and back.
Yeah.
It costs more than just the treatment because they're
Now,
paying 2 salaries of 2 officers to go with him and the transport vehicle. So they
now,
get, some people can't even afford to get to their treatment. And these guys get taken in with their, I don't know. It's just, I think that if you're doing a life sentence for a horrific crime,
yes,
I don't think we should prolong their life.
I agree.
But if you're, I mean, everybody, I mean, I do believe in second chances. Obviously, you know, John has come around and other people had changed their
100%.
lives too. But if you have killed people and like ruined all these people's lives and your crime is so horrific that you got a life sentence, I just don't think we need to prolong the life then. Why are we prolonging these people's lives?
Right.
They're
Mhm.
doing a life sentence in prison so it can cost us more money to keep them incarcerated for longer. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree on that. Hey, one thing I wanted to ask you, Ma, is so when I was in high school, I remember you telling me about a story, right? You had told me about a story about a Glendale police officer in the early 2000s. I think he did it in the early 90s or late 90s, but he was prosecuted more in the early 2000s. Um, I remember you telling me a story about him where he was a Glendale police officer and he was accused of molesting his daughter and raping his wife and chopping them up into little pieces. And then 16 years later, they did a DNA test and found out it was not even him.
Yeah, that happens. I think that happens a lot. DNA's freed a lot of people.
But isn't that, hey, to me, that's horrible because so me being on the GP line, right? I know that for a fact, if you go into there with that charge, they consider you no good. So even though he was proven innocent,
He was a cop anyway, so he was in protective custody right off the bat.
but even though he was proven, I get that, but even though that he was proven innocent, he was still considered a piece of shit because he had to PC up because
No,
he
he
would
didn't have
not.
to. Yeah, he was a cop.
Right. Well, yeah. So he was
They don't give you
already.
a choice. They don't give you a choice. If you're in say if I committed a crime and went to jail and was convicted, because I was an ex-correctional officer, I would never be in GP. I wouldn't have a choice.
Right.
they automatically, in high profile cases and in cases where you're an officer or whatever, which has happened, we've supervised one of our own before.
Yeah.
And you automatically get put in protective custody. And honestly, like, even though you did some crazy things when you were in prison, I think they were trying to protect you by putting you in isolation because you were related to me.
I'll be honest, I have thought about that, but at the same time, okay, so with you knowing, okay, you know that a major A ticket is the worst ticket that you can get. It's a major A ticket is the same ticket you get if you murder somebody in prison. You get a major A ticket. In my first 43 days, I had 2 major A tickets and a minor B ticket. That's why I got sent to Supermax, because I went from a very low custody yard to Supermax within 43 days of being in prison.
Well, the
And-
thing is you don't go into lockdown until you get 3 majors. You had 2.
Oh, well,
3.
I was,
3 strikes and you're out is, it's 3 majors is when, but they also can override that rule and use their own discretion.
well, they kept me in GP. I'm grateful for that. Thank you, because if I had not been kept in GP, my entire time would have been totally different. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm glad that my time was done the way it was, because in that process, I met on a personal level. I still talk to a few brothers. I still talk to a couple probates on a regular basis, like monthly type thing. I'm grateful that they did not. That was something that I always worried about when I went to prison. I was always worried that they were going to piecing me up, basically, because of who you were, but they didn't. They didn't.
Nobody really knew that. It was kind of, I had to do an information report and let them know that we were related, so you didn't end up on my yard. But I think that it was a good thing that you were in a cell block rather than out on the yard, because
I would have been in more trouble.
that saved yourself from yourself.
Oh, I probably would have caught another 10 years, because for me to go and, stab somebody or whatever, it's not that, it wasn't like it was a big deal. So it was probably a good thing that I'm not going to lie to you. Like, when I got super maxed out in a way, I was like, yo, this sucks. Like, I can't go do nothing. I can't smoke cigarettes. I'm not allowed to do nothing. I can't go do shit. But at the same time, the way I am, I'm a loose cannon. I'm a wild card. So in a way, I looked at it like, well, yeah, I got super maxed out right the fuck away, because my points went from a 22.16 to a 69.73. Like, my points were almost as high as you can possibly get. 80 points is as high as you can possibly get. And I was at a 73 within the first 3 months of being in the prison. But it was also because I was violent. If you look on my DOC record right now, 307387, it'll tell you that I was a 10 out of a 10 for violence, and I was a 10 out of a 10 for a danger to society. That's what they thought of me. They thought that I was a danger to society, a 10 out of a 10.
That's nothing to be proud of.
In a 10 out of 10, look at that mugshot, man. Woo!
What's that on your nose? There's something on the nose. What is that?
Nothing. That was my very first mugshot ever. So there's a guy
I don't
who
see anything
is.
on your nose. That's without my glasses. It looks like there's something on your nose.
No, there's nothing on my nose. I look beautiful and perfect. Um, there's the reason why I have
Another
my
10 out of
first.
10.
Yeah, hey, another 10 out of 10, Ronnie. Hey, so the reason why I have that picture up, Ma, is because there is another individual. We won't say his name and give him any kind of clout, but there's another individual who his uncle. Well, this is a good opinion to get from you. Okay, so his uncle is related to a famous case. So in the early 90s, this same individual who has a YouTube channel who claims his mugshots are way better than mine. So that's why I posted the one I did, because I was like, yo, look, I look like a young surfer dude. I look sexy as fuck. Don't play with me. Your face was picked the fuck off. Now, do I have bad mugshots? Of course I do. I have 13 mugshots. Yes, I'm bound to have some horrible mugshots. But his uncle, Ma.
Pretty like me.
Hey, well, real quick, Ma. So his uncle is from a famous case that they made movies after.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was. There was a movie played by Megan Fox. Megan Fox played the main role from Star.
Yeah. And the girl Amanda Seyfried, I hung out with her when she shot Ted 2. And she was in that movie as well.
That's wild, bro. But hey, check this out, Ma. So this individual's uncle was famous in the 90s because him and his three friends, they were 15, 17, and 18 years old. His uncle was 15. They killed a 15-year-old girl that they were friends with, and they sacrificed her to sell their souls to the devil. And for 8 months, it is allegedly recorded that they went back and had sex with the body for 8 months, and they left it. They hid the body in a
8
tree.
months? You can't have 8 months. You can't have sex with a corpse for
They
8
sure
months.
did.
Unfortunately, this sick stuff you're hearing is based
This
on
is real
actual
shit, Ma.
shit.
They hid the body. They hid the body in a tree for 8 months.
That was one beat up.
How the
dead
fuck?
vagina.
That in itself is unbelievable. How the fuck do you hide a
How do you
body
have
in a
sex
tree
for
for
8
8
months
months?
with a corpse?
That's
That
just
was one.
who
Right.
even thinks of that? But
That was
like,
one
what the
deadbeat
fuck?
vagina.
Oh my god!
You're shut your ass up, Ma. That was fun. So there's a dark sense of humor joke right there.
Say fuck like that, dog.
She said that was one deadbeat vagina. Okay, well, we're not going to keep saying that because salute to the family. I apologize. Much love to you guys. We're sorry that happened. But this is okay. So this dude supports his uncle. This is the same guy, Ma, that supports his uncle and calls me a piece of shit. He says I'm a piece of shit. He says I'm a scumbag. I'm a low life, but yet he still talks to his uncle regularly. He still writes this individual regularly.
Well, that's his business, but really,
Fuck that.
why
Tells
would
you all you need to know too.
why do you even give a shit what he would say?
Right? Yeah. At all. Fuck him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Ma, you would never talk to an individual who did anything close to that. Ever. It doesn't matter who they were in our family. I know for a fact you would never talk to that individual ever. There would never be nothing. You would never be like, yeah, oh, you're a great person, or you just made a mistake when you were 15 years old. I don't.
My brother and my sister, I did try to reconnect with them when they got out of prison, but
Yes, but they did nothing close to that.
oh no, no.
No, and guess what? The song they did it to, what was it? Shit. Hey Ronnie, what was the song? It was a
Dude,
famous
if I'm
rock
honest,
song.
I didn't pay attention to that whole shit. I don't know, but
Oh,
I
it
am
was
in
a
love with
famous heavy
Megan
metal
Fox,
song.
so I did see the movie, so I kind of know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You
What's
know,
the movie?
Jennifer's Body.
Jennifer's Body, right? Is that what it is,
Yeah,
Ronnie?
Jennifer's
Jennifer's Body.
Body. And then after you hear the backstory, I mean, like the name of the movie, that's what it's called, Jennifer's Body. Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that
And
on YouTube or?
it's an older
no,
movie. It's about
Netflix.
It's probably 10 years old. You could probably find it on demand in Netflix or something. But
Yeah.
I
it
don't know if I
definitely
even want
takes
to watch
the like the fun out of like going to see a Megan Fox movie. You know, nothing like a buzzkill like that. What the fuck? Like that
Well,
full circle,
honestly,
bro.
like true stories are crazier than we can even imagine, and that's why
I totally agree
true stories
100%.
I love true story type of movies because
That's all I watch when it comes to shows, documentaries, movies based on real life. Even the one today, like I watched with my mom, Going 80 for Brady. It was based on the actual, whether it was corny, funny or not. It was based on true events, you know. So I think anything's cool because at the same time I'm being entertained, I'm being educated. So I always like documentaries and movies based on real life.
yeah, me too, because there's so much to learn from that, and really like
You can't write some of
I
this
think
stuff.
a lot of this stuff is so crazy you can't we can't even come up with
Can't
this.
even make this stuff up. Yeah. Yeah, for real.
Yeah,
I hear you.
yeah.
What was what was the if there was one thing that you had witnessed while you were a correctional officer, what was the creepiest thing, the scariest thing, whether it was charges that they had, it doesn't matter. What was the craziest thing that you witnessed in DOC that will forever stand in your mind?
I think one thing that pissed me off really bad was when I was in the control room, I kept seeing inmates going to the shower and opening it up and looking and then leaving. I wasn't the floor officer, but I told my floor, go again. It was like in C pod where it's right front street, right in front of me, right? I'm like, go in C pod and go see what's going on in the shower.
Yeah.
Did you go do a walk, but go in there first. And he's like, why? I said, something's going on in the shower. I know a normal run, you get accustomed to what is normal in certain runs and what's not. And when I see 3-4 people walk up the run and go to the shower and open the curtain and then walk back to their house, something's not right. Somebody's in that shower and is in trouble. And he went over there and wouldn't open the curtain. And I was really ticked off because he wouldn't open the curtain. And I had to get on the radio and tell him, open the curtain, open the curtain. And this was, everybody could hear it on the radio. And he didn't want to open the curtain because he didn't want to see another guy naked. And I'm like, open the curtain. There's something wrong, right? And he would not open the curtain. And I just wanted to say, open the effing curtain, but I couldn't because you can't cuss, So I said, if you don't open the curtain, I'm going to call ICS. And then I would start getting phone calls. What's going on? What's going on? I said, this guy doesn't want to pull this curtain open. And I know somebody's in there hurt. And he's afraid he's going to open the curtain. I said, dude, at this point, by this time, you'd think he would have figured it out.
Right.
Because that inmate would have opened the curtain and said, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Right.
He would have opened it himself, yelling at him like, what the fuck he's standing outside the shower for, right?
Right.
And maybe he didn't want to see what he was going to see, but and then I had to call an ICS and call other officers to come in the building to finally open the curtain. And it was an inmate sitting in a chair, slumped over, like kind of like that. His eye was like, looked like it was about to come out of his eye socket. They stomped him and beat the fuck out of him and dragged him over there and put him in the shower.
Well, he was probably a piece of shit.
Well, but inmates have died on my watch. I've been there, and inmates have died, and I'm in the control room, and they're all going in, and then medics come and everything, and I pray for them. I
Yeah.
pray.
That's
I
what's up.
mean, I don't know. They don't know that,
Right.
but you're sitting there watching all this stuff go down. These people are, John, you need to realize these guys might be piece of shit or whatever. And yeah, I do feel that way about some of them, but they have a mother, they have a sister, a father, or kids, or a wife. There's somebody out there that is going to be sad. I mean, that they've made these choices in their life. And really, it's between mostly them and God. And really, in the end, what's most important is, their salvation. And, hell's a horrible place for somebody to be for an eternity.
Mm.
Like, and I don't know, maybe some of these people, I think some people do deserve hell, but that's not for me to decide.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with quietly praying for them and their family and their soul when they pass. I mean,
Yeah.
death is very, very final, and you don't get
Yeah.
any more chances. Like, you're lucky that you got a second chance and you didn't get killed in prison while you were there for making some stupid mistake.
Yeah. Well, it's stupid mistakes happen a lot in prison. I've literally seen dudes get stabbed in the face because they made a decision that if you were on the street, you'd be like, what? You
Mhm.
mean they killed that dude for that shit? Yeah, they killed that motherfucker for that shit. Oh, shit. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? So,
And sometimes
I,
these guys die weeks or days before they're getting released. Sometimes, I mean, just,
yeah.
I generally, most of the inmates that I remembered was either because they did something really, really cool, but really, really nice, or they were really, really bad. And I usually tried, even to, once I left, I often would forget their names or whatever. Now I've saved a lot of paperwork. Every IR I've written, I've saved a ton of paperwork.
Right.
So maybe one day I can go through some of that and read some of the stories and some of the IRs that I wrote
Yeah,
about different situations or whatever.
that would
But
be cool.
I think, like, it's such a waste for somebody to waste the life that they were given. It's such a gift, and to waste it on committing crimes and hurting other people and not concentrating on healing yourself so you can move forward in life and be happy, that you feel like you need to make people miserable and harm other people to express your anger. I mean, those are pretty serious things to contend with. And, I wish things were different, but this world is set up with good and evil. I mean, if we didn't have evil, we wouldn't appreciate the good. And if we didn't have good, we wouldn't appreciate, like,
Definitely.
bad things that people do. Sometimes that's part of the path that a victim has to take. I mean, we'll never know for sure until we go and meet Jesus and they let us know everything. But I think you have to be careful things you think and say about other people and judge, because, and trust me, I've been on the other end where I've judged and stuff.
Yeah.
And then you see their family or people come to visitation, and sometimes you're like, that's just kind of like you came from a nice family, you came from good people, you just
Yeah.
made some very,
Bad
very
decisions.
for whatever reason, but
Yeah.
it's just very complicated. And I try to to pray for those people that passed when I was there and stuff. And I've just been in the control room board sometimes and just start praying and start out praying for my family and myself, and then start praying for inmates and whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
you never know. Like, you never know who's really praying for you. Them assholes probably never thought I was praying for anybody. You know,
Yeah.
they were just worried about right here, right now. Like, she wants me to uncover my face so she could see my face. But really, I don't care to see his face. I care to see that he's alive and he's not beat up.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
not the only one that's in that.
I can relate to that, Ma, because there was plenty of times where COs would come to me and they'd be like, Christopher, take your light shade off. And I'd be like, fuck you. Well, then I'm gonna write you an IR. Okay. So, and they'd be like, well, if I write you an IR, you're going to lose store for 30 days. And I'd be like, I don't give a fuck. Don't nobody put no books and money on my books. Well, then you're going to lose your TV for 30 days. And I'd be like, do you see a fucking TV on my rack, motherfucker? I don't own a fucking TV.
You had nothing to lose.
Yeah, I'd be like, yo, fuck
It's a
you.
dangerous place to be.
I've literally told cops, hey, fuck you. If you want to take this fucking light cover down, then you can bring 3 COs in here, because keep in mind, I was Supermax. So I'd be like, if you want to fucking bring 3 COs in here, go ahead, bring them in here. And guess what? I'm going to take off on one of those cops for a fucking light shade. Go ahead, bring 3 of them in here. One of them is going to get beat up the fuck on. So you can come in here. I don't have nothing to lose. They would leave me alone after a while, Ma. They would leave me alone. They'd be like, damn, Christopher ain't got nothing to lose. No, I don't. I don't order a store. I don't get a TV. I don't get none of that shit. I don't give a fuck what you do. You can come in here, but guess what? And that's the sad part, is that because of the organization I'm affiliated with, I just didn't care. I'd be like, yeah, well, guess what? I take off on you, I get some stripes. So go ahead, come in here. Let's add another 5 years to my sentence.
That's just
Let's go ahead.
Just stupid thinking. Like, I don't even
Well, it is. But you have to understand too that when you're in a place like that, so the mindset that you don't understand is that when you're in a place like that, it's all about perception and persona, right?
Yep.
So people want to know. So when I know it sounds stupid, but when it comes down to it, it would be like, okay, hey. Yo, hey, did you guys hear about Christopher? Nah, what happened? Yo, hey, he told this cop, fuck you, and beat that fool up. What did he beat him up for? Well, because he told him to take down his light shade, and they'd be like, damn, that's a gangster motherfucker right there.
What was the point in that? Was it to keep the room dark, or what?
No, it was just no, because my cellie and I had shit hidden to a point to where you guys would have never found that shit. It's just that it was more of that gangster mentality. You know what I mean? It was more of
What is a light shade? I don't understand what a light shade is.
A light shade. So I would take cardboard, and I would cut a rectangle out, and I'll put it up on my light that was hanging on above the toilet, and I would cover up that light shade. The light shade that they keep up 24 hours to fuck with us psychologically, that same light shade that they do.
I don't know. Okay, I know what you're talking about now. And I've seen that a lot of times, and I never said shit about it. I didn't care about
Nope,
it.
not. Hey, I had so many COs wake me up. Hey, Christopher.
That's a security light. That's not.
Well, I understand that, but you have to understand that
you have a flashlight. Just as long as they can see you, that's what's important.
But what you don't understand is that I'm not allowed to allow another cop to tell me what to do. So the way I explain it to you,
for you to be in, then, isn't it?
Well, the way that I explain it to younger people, this is
Does
how
that-
I explain it. This is how I explain prison to young people. I say, check it out. You're in prison because you don't know how to follow the rules. But now you come to
Nothing but
prison
rules.
and now you don't just have one set of rules, you have
Yeah.
two sets of rules that you have to follow. You have to follow your people's rules, and then you have to follow, well, somewhat DOC rules. Because when it comes down to it, inmate rules, they supersede DOC rules. So if
They
you,
trump them, if you will.
yeah, if a CEO was like, "Hey, check it out, Christopher, it's the law. You have to go sit at this table." And let's just say that table is full of other races. Well, it's my due diligence to sit there and say, "No, fuck you. I'm not sitting over there." Well, guess what? You can take me to the hole then. Other than that, I'm not sitting over there because at that point it becomes it's I know it sounds silly to CEOs, but you guys
They house inmates in, well, I guess it's in GP.
now they do. They didn't when I was in prison.
Right.
When I was in prison,
That whole
it had
thing,
only
that
it
whole
had only been a year since the law was passed that we had to stop racially segregating. And then when I was still in prison, they were not trying to move Supermax and they were not trying to bring other races into the Supermax. We were the very last people to get the quote unquote interracial housing, but I got let out right before that.
well,
Because I was told by the big homies, hey, if he comes into your cell and he's not a white boy, he's not a piece of shit. You're not allowed to just put your boots to his face, but you have to tell him up front, like, hey, bro, I know we don't got a problem, but I have to fight you because you're not allowed in my cell.
the whole race thing blew me away when I first came to Arizona. It was shocking to me that they allowed any kind of segregation because Texas did not.
What do you mean?
Texas didn't even let you.
Elaborate.
Texas didn't even let, we assigned the seating for the inmates at chow
Wow.
time. We did not allow segregation. We didn't allow them to segregate themselves. And there was just no segregation at all. In Arizona, the inmates had their own racial rules about race,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes the prison environment much more violent and volatile.
Yeah. I
Texas
mean,
had been doing it long enough where they weren't clumping
well,
together races even on their own anymore because we
can I
sat
give?
separately. We'd pick the seating for them in the chow hall. They were all, nobody cared about the race. They just went where the bed was available. Arizona started doing it where they had to balance the races in the runs and balance the races and stuff on the bunks and stuff like that when they would do housing. And there was a big lawsuit and it turned into, I always called it like match.com.
I remember that.
Mm.
Really hard to pair up inmates. They had to have similar time for similar crimes. And they, sometimes they could be the same race, but not necessarily. And so it was very difficult to actually house inmates that refused to house because they would refuse because one is white and one is Mexican, kind of bullshit. And it was hard enough to get inmates housed just on their criminal history and all the other things that the laws dictated now that they have to house them. But I don't know, this whole racial thing that Arizona allows to go on is absurd. And it's like 100 years behind other states. Like I don't.
Well, can I put it to you this way, Ma? So look, I I didn't understand how the judicial system worked in other states until I made a prison. Well, it was a YouTube channel. I didn't realize it was in the prison genre. But what you have to understand is that I disagreed with the racial segregation. And then when I learned about YouTube and I learned about other states, and I heard about all the fuckboy shit they have go on in other states, I was like, hey, racial segregation is great for prison because we handle everything inside. We handle everything that in house. So with that being said, the Aryan Brotherhood was started in.
That's not a good thing for the prison system because
Yes, but you have to understand that in Arizona and in California, that the rape against just males in general, let alone white males, was literally through the roof. It was insane. So they started the Aryan Brotherhood to put a stop to that.
Yep.
And once that happened in 1964, people being raped became less and less because you didn't have other races just running amok. You didn't have white boys raping Mexicans, and you didn't have Mexicans raping white boys. You didn't have white boys raping black dudes, and you didn't have black dudes raping white boys. Now, in the 60s, that was normal, right? So they started the AB to stop all of that. And what did it do? It definitely stopped all of that. Is racial segregation good? No. Is it good in prison? Yeah. Is it good on the streets? Absolutely not. We're in 2023, to be honest. If you're racist, I feel like you're stuck in the 60s.
Right.
But I do understand where racial segregation comes from. I understand where the purpose of it comes from, and I understand why it is as effective as it is because I watch other prison YouTubes where the Aryan Brotherhood for the white boys or whatever is not there. And white boys, Mexicans, blacks, everybody's getting raped. We don't have that in Arizona because we don't allow sexual activities like that. You could not be a homosexual in Arizona and walk a GP yard because they're going to fuck you off. They're going to tell you either you're going to piece you up or we're just going to fucking kill you. You're not going to sit here and suck dick for fucking 10 items. We don't have that. So you have to understand that when I hear other states that do not have any kind of structure or racial segregation, I understand.
Inmate that is giving the oral sex and not the inmate that's receiving it.
They're both homos. They're both no good. They're both piece of shit, and they both are going to get handled.
But a lot of times inmates are just like that because there's no one else around. They don't tell their families that.
Well, I'm sure that's true. But at the same time, most of the yards that you worked at were PC yards. You worked on a lot of yards that were PC yards. And I know that because you talk about dudes that told on people. You talk about dudes that sexually molested people. And well, you know as well as I do that if you have any kind of a sexual charge, you will never be on a GP yard ever. So most of the yards you worked on, from even what we've talked about now, have been PC yards, which is different than GP.
I know the difference. And I've worked PC and general population probably equally, but
yeah.
The PC guys were just a bunch of whining babies. They used to get on my nerves because they whine and cry about the dumbass shit. And then they
Yeah.
had stupid stuff going on where they had like an honor pod for certain well-behaved PC inmates.
I'll bet.
And they always felt like,
I'll bet they
I'm in
did.
the honor pod. You have to let me this or that. I don't have to let you do shit. You know,
Yeah.
get off of
Well,
my last nerve and go in your cell.
yeah. It will exactly. You
They didn't
little
want
piece
to
of
back
shit.
up. It's time for count. They didn't want to cooperate with anything. Then they had all the doors. They left the inmates' doors open so they could come and go. Technically,
Yeah.
they're not allowed in each other's cell, although they were always caught in each other's cell. But they thought they were something special because they were in the honor pod. And they go crying to a supervisor, and it's kind of like immediately you try to address a situation, which is your job, and immediately they go to, I want to talk to a sergeant. I want to talk to a lieutenant.
See,
There's no time to run over here for some petty shit. That is my
well,
job. to handle.
that's
Theirs.
that's my point, Ma. Is that's what I'm getting at, is that the guys that were going to the sergeants and the lieutenants, that tells you right there that they were PC off top. Because I got hit in the back of the head with a fucking stupid yellow fucking dinner tray in front of a cop. He handed me the tray. I literally turned around, handed it to my cell. He turned back around and he hit me in the back of the head with this little stupid 12 by 12 inch fucking yellow tray. Boom, hit me in the back of the head. And I turned around, picked him up, body slammed him, started fucking, pounding on his face. And at the end of the day, when the CO asked me, he said, "Hey, Christopher, did he attack you?" I said, "I don't know." He was like, "What do you mean you don't know?" I said, "I don't know. You were standing right there." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You know what I mean. You were standing right there. You saw what happened. I can't tell you what happened. You saw what happened." He was like, "So would you say that he hit you?" And I said, "I'm not saying nothing. I don't know. I don't remember if he hit me or not." And he was like, all right, man, this is your last chance. Did he attack you?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't remember."
Well,
But if I had said, yes, he attacked me, guess what? My next cellie probably would have stabbed me in the face fucking 3 or 4 fucking times
if
because
you were
I
a
said
PC,
that.
you'd be singing like a canary.
What?
If you were a PC, you'd sing like a canary because they're
I would
protected.
never be PC though.
I'm just saying that's what the PCs do.
Well,
That's
PC, that's what I was getting at is the,
Yeah,
but that's what I'm getting at, Ma, is that
big difference.
a lot of the yards you worked at were PC because if
Well, a
you're
lot
going
of
to
them,
tell me,
like I said, I know the difference. I worked on
I know you do.
regular
I know
yard.
you do, Ma.
Both.
I'm just saying, like, if I talk to a sergeant or a lieutenant, I would be considered a piece of shit, snitch ass rat.
In Texas, you weren't even allowed, inmates didn't even approach us for anything unless it was a medical thing.
Oh, see, if we approach on a
They
GP
wouldn't
yard
even
and
approach officers, not even the sergeant or anything. I'm just talking COs in general. Inmates just did not come up to you and chatty Cathy with you. In Arizona,
well,
I was shocked because first of all, inmates they don't even show any respect. In Texas, if you came up to talk to me about you need to go medical or whatever, first of all, you would put your head down and you put your hands behind your back to show you're not a threat. And then you would ask permission to talk to me. And you didn't have to have somebody there,
yeah,
but unless you go into the lieutenant's office or something, but they would then they would say, "Hey, I need to see medical. I'm sick. I need a sick slip or whatever." It shocked me that inmates would just come right up to you in your fucking face talking shit.
Completely different.
Completely different. And I was getting in trouble because I was telling them, "What are you doing? Put your hands behind your back." "What do you mean, bro? You're going to arrest me? You're going to cuff me up?" "No, I'm not cuffing you up. Put your hands behind your back if you want to talk to me." I used to get in arguments sometimes with inmates because they didn't want to do that. And they were like, why? I said, look, I can give you any directive that I want that is lawful. That's a lawful directive. Put your hands behind your back so I don't feel threatened with, because they come up to you waving their hands and stuff. You don't know if they're going to haul off and punch you in the face or smack you. You don't know.
Yeah.
You know? And the more excited they get, the more their hands start going, and then they're yelling, and then they get closer and closer. You know what I mean? Like, inmates didn't raise their voice at you in Texas.
Wow, that's
Well,
a big difference.
They didn't yell at you. They didn't raise their voice at you. They really didn't even make eye contact. They kind of would look down and they would look up, kind of, and then
None of them ever use that as like a sneak attack, like put their hands behind their back to look like they're not a threat, and then maybe come with a surprise headbutt or something.
No, but I would never be close enough for them to.
Not you, but like, have you ever seen it?
No.
So Texas was completely different. You said
Texas
you
was
basically
not.
had assigned seating.
We assigned their seats. So if I was doing chow that day, I would tell the inmates where to sit, and I would make sure all the races were mixed.
So
I
they
didn't
weren't
But not in
racially
Arizona, right?
segregated. So
let 2 black girls sit together, and I didn't let 2 Mexicans sit together. It had
what
to
about outside of Chow? Were they organized by neighborhood or area or gangs, or how was that?
I don't know. I really didn't pay a lot of attention to the gangs, and the females aren't really in the gangs and stuff as much.
Right.
They're families. They call themselves
Oh yeah, I forgot
families.
that was the females in Texas, right?
Yeah, well, in Arizona, it's the same. The gangs aren't really a thing for them.
They call themselves families in
Oh,
Arizona.
I'm hip to the
family
how the
cliques.
females get down, but
Right.
just the whole difference in the
The
states.
Texas, the inmates had to walk right behind one after another, right behind each other.
Kind of militant.
They weren't allowed to talk to each other. They weren't allowed to communicate on their way there and back. And we would stand in the middle of the sidewalk, which was kind of a wide sidewalk. And we would stand in the middle, and the inmates had a line that they had to walk in between the line and the edge of the deal, and they weren't allowed to talk. Every now and then, I would say, inmate Smith, come up here, whatever, because maybe I had mail for her because she was at work or whatever, but it was always like something legit. And then they would go back in line, and it's a shit show in Arizona. It really is. The inmates are all over the place.
Chaotic.
They're hugging each other, passing drugs right in front of you, and they let them do it. None of that shit went on in Texas. And I thought Arizona was tougher than Texas. So I was like, this is going to be cool, No, it's horrible from a security standpoint, because there's a lot of drugs, a lot of corruption, a lot of dirty cops, a lot of good cops. But the higher up you go, the dirtier you have to be, and the more secrets you have to carry. So I never really promoted, simply because I didn't want to be put in that position.
Right.
Of being,
Definitely.
because everybody I saw, a lot of them, supervisors and stuff, they were all covering for each other and covering for other people. And we had some supervisors that made their own damn schedule. I don't know how they got away with it. They would show
Not
up.
cut out for everybody. You got to be mentally strong, and you have to have that intuition. Like when you were telling homeboy, check behind the. A lot of it comes with gut, strength, and just a lot of it's mentally mentally strong.
You have to have good boundaries. You
Definitely.
have to be. If you don't have a good moral compass,
right,
you're going to get compromised, especially if you're a female. But the males got compromised too. Male
definitely.
officers got caught giving an inmate a blowjob, and officers got caught receiving blowjobs from a guy. I mean,
oh my goodness.
Stuff like that
The homosexuality is real, people.
But those weren't particularly my experiences. I didn't catch them. I didn't walk in on it. but I usually knew who was a shady officer, and I refused to work with them. And oftentimes I refused to even let them in the building. So there was a few
Right.
officers that were so bad. Let's see, Ba was one of her names. She was so dirty. I wouldn't even let her in my building, and she would be angry because I wouldn't let her in. And I'd tell her, look, you have no business here. Because she would just go in and she would tell me to pop a door, and then she'd walk in an inmate's cell.
Yeah.
You never do that, because then you're out of sight. Anything could happen. Any accusation could be made.
Right.
No witness to it because you went in the cell out of sight. Or what if,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? What is she doing? Who is
Yeah.
she going? Why would she go in? I would never go in an inmate cell when inmates are in there. I would go in
Right.
there to do searches after they're out, but I never went
Yeah.
in with an inmate, never. So, and then I get hemmed up for her stupid shit. So, because I opened the door. Well, why'd you open the door? Because she told me to open the door. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I don't want to get caught up in all that drama. I wouldn't let her in my house. I wouldn't let her in any area I was in charge of. I wouldn't let her in. And she used to get mad. And she
Yeah.
called the lieutenant. And I would say, look, she's got no business here. She's told me she was representing a CO3. She's a CO2. She has no business doing CO3 activities.
Right.
Not a CO3. And I've had her go into an MA cell and disappear for a period of time, a fairly long period of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she gets mad at me. So there's certain people I wouldn't even let in my building because they're putting me at risk too.
Yeah.
And it's easy. And then when you're a senior officer too, they like to blame you for behavior of other COs that are fucking retarded.
Yeah.
So why is that
Um,
my fault? You know what I mean? But they tend to blame it on you because, well, you're senior officer. You shouldn't let them say that.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
stupid stuff. You get hemmed up and hung up by officers, and you get hemmed up and hung up sometimes by inmates. It's just
Crazy.
like everything's coming at you from every direction,
Yeah.
and you have to make the right decisions and choices.
It takes a strong
Yeah.
woman. It takes a strong person in general to work a job like that. And it takes a lot of courage to come up here on the YouTube streets. Let me just tell you, this grown man that ducked this podcast. So again, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out and having the courage to come up here and deal with us knuckleheads. We appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Hey,
Well,
definitely. Hey, Ma, I just want to let you know, I do got to end this live because I got to get up for work in about 6, 7 hours. So, I just want you to know that I love you and I appreciate you. And, I don't, I just love you, Ma. And I'm grateful that you are my mother. Uh, you know, sorry that I made bad decisions, but just know that I did learn from them a lot. Sometimes our conversations on the phone, you probably don't think so. But I have. I just want you to know that I love you. I appreciate you for coming up here with us. There's actually a couple of channels that have mentioned in the chats that at some point in time they would like to interview you on their channel as well.
okay.
So you might be making your rounds through a few channels,
Well, I think
but
it's important
people
that
want to
people.
hear what you have to say.
I think a
They
lot of
do.
people talk about inmates' experiences, and they don't
Yeah.
really talk about how difficult it is to be a CO.
It's good to hear
Yeah,
both sides, you know?
Yeah, there's
always.
sides of the story, and I think inmates are. I think COs put up with a lot more shit than inmates do. Honestly.
Um, I mean, I know you and I have had that conversation in the past. And I'll say it right now, the same thing I told you. I don't necessarily think so and the reason why is because the chances of you guys going home is a lot greater than the chances of me going. I have to dealing with your rules, and then I have to deal with my own people's rules. So
Right.
now I have two sets of rules that I have to be considerate of breaking, because if I break a rule with you guys throw me in the hole. If I break the rule with my people, I get stabbed to death. So I understand where you're coming from. I really do.
Officers are assaulted and
Well, how many officers die a year compared to
of
inmates?
course it's less, it's less than inmates.
It's
But
way less,
I mean,
but there's way less officers
a lot
than
of our,
there are inmates,
we still deal with a lot of issues too. It's just on a
of
different.
course.
Yeah.
And some inmates, some officers fight other officers physically fighting because
Yeah. And I've seen that happen. I've seen officers take off their badge and their shirt and fight inmates in the shower. I've seen it happen.
That's what when those officers should be fired because they
Oh, well, that's a lawsuit. Hey,
they
look,
lack
if he beats me up,
judgment
I'm
and
suing.
ethics.
If he beats me up, if a cop beats me up, I'm suing DOC.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm suing DOC if he beats me up. If he doesn't beat me up, I'm not suing.
Well,
But if he beats me up, I'm suing.
They're probably baiting that officer. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Never know.
And they're an idiot and they fall
Perspective.
for it.
It's from
Yeah.
two different sides of the coin here. And it's
Yeah.
amazing, the story. And again, we appreciate you coming on and sharing. It takes courage. And
Definitely, thank you, Mom.
very smart woman, very tough, obviously. And I see where AZ gets it. I gotta say. Hats off to you, man. Salute, seriously.
Appreciate you, Ronnie.
I appreciate being a part of this, guys.
You've been Ronnie, you were amazing, my brother. You know
Thank
I love you, dog. You've been great. You ask great questions.
Thank you.
If my mom didn't like you, she would tell you.
That's what's up. I know.
She would
I
tell
know.
you. She'd be
I know
like,
that
I
much
don't
by
like
now.
him.
She's very blunt.
And she's very blunt. If she didn't like you, she'd be
I
like,
like that.
why is he on here right now? I don't.
Yeah.
That's just how she is.
You never have to wonder where you stand with me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I hear that. I wear my heart on my sleeve so I can relate. You know? No poker face here. What you see, what you get.
I like your accent. It's funny.
He's from Boston. That's why.
I love
Fucking Ronnie.
Speaking of my accent, I gotta go park my car.
Hey,
Yo, but
Ronnie.
hey, it was
I just
great
want you to know I love you, brother.
I love
Thanks
you
for
guys,
having
man.
me.
Have a great night. Good night. Thank you again for coming on. Everybody in the chat, thank you all for being respectful. We appreciate you all. AZ, good night. Mrs. AZ, good night. Thank you again.
Good night.
Peace.
Hey, salute, Ronnie. Love you, brother.
I'll talk to you later, bro. Love you.
All right, bro. Hey, Ma, I love you. I appreciate you coming on. You're amazing. I'm glad to have you as my mom. Be prepared to probably do a couple more interviews with a couple other channels in the future.
Yeah, this might become a thing.
It might be. I think you should, honestly, I think you should start your YouTube channel should be just about your 26 years of
I don't want to
prison content.
I don't want to do a prison channel.
Well, you say that until you're making $10,000 to $15,000 a month. And I'm pretty sure at that point you're going to be like, I don't care. What do you want me to talk about? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll talk about that. Is it going to make me money? Yep, I'll talk to you about that.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see, Mom. You know I love you.
A homesteading, gardening type of channel.
I know. But hey, the biggest part is you just got to post content. It doesn't matter what genre you're in. You just got to post the content. That's all it is. Nobody can watch your content if you don't post it. I got 15,000 views today on 2 videos. You just got to post it. That's all you got to do. You just got to post the content.
All right, even if it's shorts.
Shorts. I got 15,000 views on 2 shorts today.
That's good.
So all you got to do, Ma, is you just got to post the content. That's it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. Well, hey, Ma, I love you. I appreciate you coming on. And, as always, you're always welcome.
All right. Thank you. I love you.
I love you too. A salute to the chat. Everybody that came in and tapped in, we appreciate you. Even the trolls were respectful. Surprisingly, we had one just now that was a douchebag, but he got blocked. Other than that, everybody, we appreciate you guys all tapping in. We appreciate the love. Thank you for joining in on the YouTube streets where even you can come get in your feelings. So just keep that in mind. Much love, everybody. Hey, Ma,
Bye.
I will talk to you tomorrow morning, okay?
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Salute. Love you, Ma.
Salute.